Chapter 274. Yi suddenly flipped out. Pervert, you're no different from that perverted uncle. Let me ask you, did you do anything to me? Xiao Tianxing lazily dug his ear. I think I already told you that I'm not interested in a married woman like you. Don't insult my taste. Seriously. Yi gritted her teeth. Since you're not interested in me, why did you help me change my clothes? You pervert. She couldn't wait to grab him from the other end of the phone and beat him up. Xiao Tianxing snorted. You vomited all over me last night and dirtied my clothes. You also made a mess of yourself. If I didn't change your clothes for you, did you want to keep those dirty things as a souvenir? Yi cheeks slowly heated up. She vomited all over him? And made herself all over? She felt like she couldn't live anymore. However, this didn't change the fact that he took off her clothes. She bit her lip and said angrily, It's my fault that I dirtied your clothes, but it's also your fault that a man like you helped me change my clothes. Forget it. It's so boring. I'll admit it. Xiao Tianxing sighed. It was a waitress who helped you change your clothes last night. I was just teasing you. It really wasn't you. It really wasn't me. If you don't believe me, you can go to the Rose Bar and ask the boss. He's my friend and he was the one who called the waitress over for me. Yi was a little embarrassed. She scratched her head. You should have said so earlier. Well, I'm sorry. I was a little agitated just now. You want to dismiss me with just an apology? My enthusiasm to do good deeds has been dampened by you. In the future, if I meet drunk women who are abducted by perverted men, I might not even save them. Xiao Tianxing's tone was rather lonely and hurt. Okay. I sincerely apologize to you. Mr. Xiao, it's my fault. I judged you with my own yardstick. Please forgive me, okay? Buy me a cup of coffee and I'll forgive you. This, sigh, forget it. You don't even have this much sincerity. Yi clenched his teeth. All right, tell me the time and place. 4 o'clock in the afternoon at your hotel. I'll wait for you in the atrium. Take Nyo with you. I miss her. Yi was speechless. After a while he replied, Okay. The atrium of this hotel was very beautiful, with pavilions, terraces and pagodas, small bridges and flowing water. At first glance, one would think that they had mistakenly entered a Jiangnan garden. The leisure area was surrounded by green trees and gurgling streams. Guests sat leisurely in groups of 2s and 3s, brewing a pot of green tea. It was incomparably pleasant. Yi held Nyo's little hand, crossed a small bridge and found Xiao Tianxing sitting in the pavilion. He was wearing a beige casual outfit, flipping through a newspaper in his hand, and his movements were elegant and unrestrained. Uncle Xiao, Nyo was still outside the pavilion, but she called out sweetly with a bright smile on her face. Little Nyo, Uncle missed you so much. Xiao Tianxing put the newspaper aside, smiled, opened his arms and carried Nyo. He rubbed his face against her pink cheeks. Nyo, did you miss Uncle? Yi had goosebumps on his arms. He was too exaggerated. Nyo winked mischievously. No. Xiao Tianxing pinched her little face. You heartless little rascal. I won't take you swimming later. Nyo hugged his neck and acted coquettishly. Uncle Xiao, I miss you a little. Take me swimming later? Xiao Tianxing laughed heartily. Okay, if your mommy agrees, I'll take you there. Mommy? The little girl looked at her mommy pitifully. Let's go swimming later, okay? Yi snatched her daughter from Xiao Tianxing's arms. Nyo, we're going home tomorrow. We still have to pack our luggage later. Nyo raised a little finger, her eyes watery. Mommy, there's only 1 hour left. We can pack our luggage at night. It's not too late. Yi hesitated for a moment, then said, Okay. Mommy is the best. Nyo happily kissed her on the cheek. There was a small pond next to the pavilion. There were many goldfish in it, and a few children were leaning on the railing to feed the goldfish. Nyo wanted to go too, but Yi reminded her to be careful. She nodded repeatedly and ran to the pond with her short legs. Yi and Xiao Tianxing sat about 10 meters away from her. They could see her movements and they looked up from time to time to ensure her safety. Thank you for last night. Yi took a sip of coffee. Xiao Tianxing looked at her quietly and said calmly, You can't hold your liquor well. Don't drink any more. Yi blushed. I'll be more careful in the future. He took a sip of coffee and looked at Nyo, who was smiling brightly. He said, Do you love your husband very much? Yeah. She didn't know why he suddenly brought up this topic. He suddenly turned his head and stared at her with his deep eyes. Even if he hurt you, you're still unwilling to leave him? She was stunned. After a while, she looked into the distance and said calmly, I used to think that I could leave. But later, I realized that even if he hurt me, I still can't leave him. He pursed his thin lips and said expressionlessly, if he doesn't turn back, what do you plan to do? She lowered her head. Her long eyelashes covered the sadness in her eyes. I don't know. I really don't know. He suddenly reached out his right hand and lifted her chin. It was supposed to be a frivolous action, but he did it so naturally. His expression was very serious. Isiki, you idiot. Let me tell you that since you still love him, even if he doesn't turn back, you have to think of a way to make him turn back. She looked at him blankly. He slowly let go of his hand and said in a deep voice, since you love him, take him back. From now on, you will have to fight a battle to protect your marriage. Her eyelashes fluttered, but she didn't say anything. He continued, marriage is a matter between two people. You can't let him torment you alone. You have to work hard too. Aren't you very passionate and full of fighting spirit? Bring out your fighting spirit. Don't let Nyonyo live in an incomplete family. His words made her feel enlightened. She turned her head abruptly and glanced at Nyonyo. Her eyes gradually filled with determination. She nodded solemnly. You're right. I can't give up just like that. Xiao Tianxing's eyes welled up with a smile. Very good, Isiki. Remember how you feel now. No matter what problems you encounter in the future, you have to think about how you feel now. Then tell yourself that you can solve it. Isiki smiled. She picked up her coffee and said sincerely, thank you. I'll toast you with coffee instead of wine. You're welcome. Xiao Tianxing also picked up his coffee and clinked his cup with hers. He took a sip of coffee, put down his cup and asked, what happened last night? Unknowingly, Isiki had already categorized Xiao Tianxing as a marriage counselor. Her trust in him had increased. Without much hesitation, she told him about Bai Meiwei's conversation with her and the contents of their conversation. Xiao Tianxing thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, you're right. Since Bai Meiwei came to you, it means that Lin Shihao didn't give her enough sense of security. In Lin Shihao's heart, you still hold a very important place. You can't give up. Yes, I won't give up. After his analysis, Isiki suddenly felt more confident. Although it was difficult to say, she still decided to tell him the cause of the incident. She coughed and said in a low voice, actually, my husband was drunk. He said he mistook Bai Meiwei for me. He said he didn't have any feelings for Bai Meiwei. I believed what he said before and forgave him. However, he lied to me that night at Seductive Charm. So I'm a little shaken. I don't know if I should believe him. Xiao Tianxing frowned. Why don't you ask him? Why did he lie to you? I am scared. Xiao Tianxing suddenly reached out and knocked her on the forehead. Idiot, you should ask him clearly about this. Who knows, there might be some misunderstanding between the two of you. She covered her forehead and stammered, all right then. I'll ask him when I get back this time. He smiled. That's right. No matter how deep the relationship between two people is, it can't withstand misunderstandings over and over again. Isiki nodded. Suddenly, she stared into his eyes and asked, why did you help me? Xiao Tianxing lowered his gaze. His lips curved into a cold smile as he said plainly, because you're just like me. We're both idiots. She was puzzled. What do you mean? He suddenly looked up at her and revealed an evil smile. You're too stupid. You won't understand even if I tell you. She was furious. Hey Xiao Tianxing, don't always attack me personally. He shrugged. I'm just speaking the truth. She snorted coldly. I'm stupid? I'm not stupid. Tell me the truth. Are you helping me because we're in the same boat and you've been hurt before? His careless smile froze. In his deep eyes, there was a desolation and vicissitudes that she couldn't understand. She regretted her blabbering and hurriedly said, I'm sorry. The corners of his lips slowly relaxed as he said plainly, it's all right. It's all in the past. It's not important. Although he said that it wasn't important, the complicated emotions in his eyes and the gloomy aura that he was exuding made her feel uncomfortable. The two of them were silent and the atmosphere was a little awkward. Isiki coughed. And I'm just saying, if I encounter any relationship problems in the future, can I ask you for advice? His thick eyelashes fluttered and the corners of his lips turned up. Of course you can. For little Nyonyo, I'll help you too. She grinned. Thank you. His eyes curved. Are you going back to City A tomorrow? Yeah, my flight is tomorrow morning. What about you? In another 2 days. Don't worry, I'll contact you when I'm back. He smiled mischievously. Don't forget to make things clear to your husband. She cupped her fists and smiled teasingly. I got it, Teacher Xiao. He touched his chin. Since you call me Teacher Xiao, I've decided to give you another gift. What gift? Instead of answering, he asked, do you have any plans tonight? No. That's good. Leave tonight for me. After little Ñoño falls asleep, come here and wait for me. I'm begging you. Make things clear. What do you mean by leaving tonight for you? He raised his eyebrows. Don't worry, it's not a bad thing. I won't have any bad intentions towards you. That's not what I meant. I just want to know what's going on. Isn't it good to leave some suspense? No matter what Yisiki said, Xiao Tianxing was unwilling to reveal the truth. She could only let him be. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Yisiki coaxed little Ñoño to bed early. She wore a pair of jeans and a white t-shirt to meet Xiao Tianxing. She thought that meeting a man at night would always be a little ambiguous and awkward. If she dressed up a little uglier, she would feel more at ease. Thus, Xiao Tianxing, who was dressed in a suit and tie, saw Yisiki like this: barefaced, shoulder-length hair, a pair of black-rimmed glasses, a pair of ripped jeans and a white t-shirt. The corners of his mouth twitched. He held his forehead with one hand and couldn't bear to look at her. Mrs. Lin, don't tell me that you dress like this at home too. The disdain in his words was very obvious. Yisiki looked at his formal suit and tugged at her t-shirt. She chuckled. Actually, it's about the same. Xiao Tianxing looked pained. Mrs. Lin, I suddenly realized that I have a long way to go. It seems that I've given you the right gift tonight. Yisiki followed him to the car park and asked curiously, are you going to give me clothes? Xiao Tianxing turned to look at her. Am I such a superficial person? He glared at her in disappointment. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. With your looks, no matter how many beautiful clothes I give you, you won't be able to bring them out. Hey Xiao Tianxing, don't make personal attacks like that. Xiao Tianxing looked into her eyes with a serious expression. Objectively speaking, you don't lose out to Bai Meiwei in terms of appearance. But why does she look so radiant while you look like a wife who has gone through hardships? Yisiki lowered her head in shame. Xiao Tianxing felt that he had been too harsh with his words. He coughed and said, actually, the way you look now is quite simple and natural. It's not bad. But you have to remember that men are visual creatures. Your husband has been looking at you for 8 years, so he might get tired of your beauty. You can't give up on yourself and become a haggard woman. You have to look radiant and reconstruct your beauty so that you can shine in front of him. Understand? Yisiki looked up at him and nodded solemnly. You're right. It's good that you've thought it through. Xiao Tianxing smiled and opened the car door for her. Get in the car. Xiao Tianxing took Yisiki to an image design center. The designer, Daniel, was a friend of Xiao Rui's. He was very enthusiastic about the two of them and spent more than half an hour discussing how to remodel Yisiki. Come and see. Hongxia 866. Chapter 275. That's right, that's it. This color suits her better. Aaron, bring me that pair of white high heels. In the brightly lit design center, a group of people were busy styling Yisiki. After more than an hour of spa treatment, she was pushed to the hairstylist again. After that, 2 beautiful assistants brought different colors of clothes to her and explained which color suited her best and how to match each color. Finally, they chose a small dress for her to change into. In the end, Daniel personally explained the makeup techniques to her, including which makeup was most suitable for her face and eyes. Finally, he let her use her own face as an experimental field. She did it over and over again until he was satisfied with it before he asked her to stop. After all this, it was already 1 o'clock in the morning. Xiao Tianxing walked out of the lounge and slowly tidied up his jacket. It seemed like he had just been woken up. Yisiki stood in front of Xiao Tianxing nervously in her 10-centimeter high heels and stared at him. Xiao Tianxing, how is it? The petite woman in front of him had a head of neat and fresh short hair that completely made people forget her age. Her big, watery eyes were filled with uneasiness and nervousness. Her tender skin glowed seductively under the light. She was wearing a white dress with a circle of lace. The soft lace flowed elegantly with her movements, creating beautiful ripples. Xiao Tianxing was stunned. Then an undisguised look of admiration appeared on his face. Yisiki, you look really good when you dress up. Yisiki's cheeks suddenly turned red. He snapped his fingers. Daniel, please help her match some winter clothes. He did not forget that it was winter in City A. No problem. Yisiki hurriedly said, 1 set is enough. It's not convenient to board the plane with too much luggage. Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows. I'll send you to the airport. Daniel, match 3 sets. Yisiki whispered, I don't have enough money on my card. Xiao Tianxing also lowered his voice. Don't worry. Daniel said that he'll give you a 50% discount. Yisiki calculated in her heart. A set of clothes cost nearly 10,000 yuan. In addition to the styling and spa expenses, even with a 50% discount, it would still cost more than 20,000 yuan. How heart-wrenching. Xiao Tianxing looked at her frowning face, coughed and said in a low voice, "Don't worry about money. Beauty also needs investment." Yi Siki gritted his teeth and said with a look of grief and indignation, "All right, I'll go all out." Xiao Tianxing couldn't help but chuckle. When she went to the front desk to settle the bill, the beautiful receptionist Miss smiled politely and said, "Mrs. Lin, your bill has been settled." Yi Siki turned to look at Xiao Tianxing subconsciously. Did Mr. Xiao help me? Yes. After Xiao Tianxing said goodbye to Daniel, he walked up to Yi Siki and said with a smile, "Let's go back to the hotel and rest. Staying up late is a woman's natural enemy." Yi Siki glanced at him and didn't say anything. Then she looked at Daniel and nodded politely. "Daniel, thank you for your hard work." Daniel smiled. "You're welcome. Take care." Xiao Tianxing helped Yi Siki carry the 2 bags and got into the car. She sat in the front passenger seat. After the car started, she said, "Mr. Xiao, give me your card number. When we return to City A, I will transfer the money to you for today's expenses." Xiao Tianxing glanced at her. "No need. I said that this is a gift from Master to his disciple. But I'm not used to owing others money." Yi Siki said seriously, "I'm very grateful for your help. This is already the best gift you can give me. Mr. Xiao, please give me your card number." It was rare to see a woman as serious as her. Xiao Tianxing raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Okay, I already have your phone number. I'll contact you when I return to City A." The car drove into the hotel's underground parking lot. The two of them returned to the hotel together. The elevator reached the 7th floor. Yi Siki walked out of the elevator and said goodbye with a smile. "Thank you for today. See you tomorrow." Xiao Tianxing smiled but didn't say anything. He followed her out of the elevator. Yi Siki looked at him in surprise. "Do you live on this floor too?" Xiao Tianxing smiled and said, "Not only on the same floor. I live next door to you." "What a coincidence." Yi Siki stroked the hair beside her ear. When they arrived at Yi Siki's room, she took out the room card from her handbag and opened the door. She turned her head and saw Xiao Tianxing standing at the door of the room next door. He had also opened the door. The two of them smiled at each other and said at the same time, "Good night." The next day after breakfast, Xiao Tianxing drove Yi Siki and Nyonyo to the airport. He helped her get her boarding pass and checked in her luggage. He squatted in front of Nyonyo with a gentle smile on his handsome face. "Little Nyonyo, you have to listen to mommy on the road. See you later." "Okay, thank you, uncle." The little girl smiled brightly and hugged Xiao Tianxing generously. Xiao Tianxing rubbed her hair, stood up and looked at Yi Siki. "Have you called your husband?" Yi Siki nodded. "Yes, I've told him. He'll come to the airport to pick us up." He put his hands in his trouser pockets. He stood tall and handsome. "Change into thick clothes before leaving the airport. It's already cold in a city." She smiled. "Got it. Thank you." He lifted his chin in the direction of the security check. "Hurry up and go in. It's almost time." "Okay, goodbye." Yi Siki held her handbag with one hand and held Nyonyo's little hand with the other. "Nyonyo, say goodbye to uncle." Nyonyo raised her pink little face and waved at Xiao Tianxing. "Goodbye, uncle." "Goodbye." 4 hours later, the plane landed at a city's airport. Before leaving the airport, Yi Siki changed her and her daughter's clothes. She dragged her suitcase and held her daughter's little hand as they walked out of the airport. Lin Shihao was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He wore a black coat and stood in the crowd. His tall figure and gentle temperament made him stand out. Yi Siki came out of the passageway and saw him at a glance. He also saw the mother and daughter. His eyes were filled with surprise and amazement. Yi Siki had a head of fresh and beautiful short hair. Her rose-red coat was open and she wore a white lace dress underneath. She also wore a pair of black suede boots. She was tall and slender and her figure was exquisite. She was full of vitality as if she were 10 years younger. Little Nyonyo was wearing a cute woolen hat, a pink cloak, black leggings and a pair of camel-colored leather boots. She was dragging a very small red suitcase in her hand. She was as cute as a little princess. "Daddy?" When Nyonyo saw Lin Shihao, she threw her suitcase away excitedly and ran towards him. Lin Shihao strode forward and bent down to pick Nyonyo up. He kissed her delicate little face a few times. "Nyonyo, did you miss Daddy?" "Yes, I missed you so much." Nyonyo hugged Lin Shihao's neck and refused to let go. "Daddy missed you too." Lin Shihao quickly walked over to Yi Siki with his daughter in his arms. He reached out a hand and wrapped it around Yisiki's shoulder. Ignoring the gazes around him, he calmly kissed her on the cheek. "Honey, you're really beautiful today." Yisiki smiled brightly and her eyes were full of joy. "Hubby, you're very handsome today too. Why did you cut your hair?" On the way home, Lin Shihao was still not used to her short hair and turned to look at her from time to time. Yisiki smiled and her beautiful eyes curved into crescents. "I just wanted to change my style. Do I look good?" He nodded. "Yes, my wife is born beautiful. You'll look good with any hairstyle." The corners of her mouth curled up and she playfully blinked. "Hubby, you're getting better at talking. You're making me so happy. Tell me honestly, did you do something wrong when I wasn't around?" He raised his hand and patted her head. The smile in his eyes did not fade. "I'm just telling the truth. In the 2 days that you weren't around, I was very obedient. I left early and returned early. I never stayed outside." "Is that so?" She raised her eyebrows and her smile faded a little. "Of course it's true." He leaned over and kissed her cheek. Yisiki could not help but push him. "Watch your image." Lin Shihao did not mind. Instead, he hugged her tightly and said to the passerby who was peeking at them, "This is my wife." The passerby smiled awkwardly and quickly walked away. Yisiki could not help but laugh out loud. Nyonyo, who was lying in Lin Shihao's arms, giggled. "Daddy, you're so naughty." Yisiki pinched Lin Shihao's cheek. "Look, you've led your daughter astray." Lin Shihao had an innocent expression on his face. He lowered his head and looked at his daughter. "Nyonyo?" Nyonyo covered her eyes with both hands. "I didn't see anything. I really didn't see anything." Yisiki was speechless. This father and daughter pair were really funny. At night, lying in bed, Lin Shihao reached out and pulled Yisiki into his arms. He rubbed his chin against her soft hair and whispered, "Wifey, are you tired?" Yisiki leaned comfortably in his arms. "I'm not tired." He suddenly lowered his head and kissed her lips. He said in a low voice, "Since you're not tired, let's do something else." Her body started to tremble slightly. His lips were very soft as they rubbed against hers. She couldn't help but reach out to hug his strong back. He used the tip of his tongue to trace the shape of her lips. The numbing feeling made her cherry lips half open. His tongue slid in and gently and meticulously licked her mouth. He held the back of her head with one hand and unbuttoned her pajamas with the other. His slender fingers caressed her soft skin. It was boiling hot and she could not help but tremble. He gently nibbled on her earlobe, his hands covering her soft pink body, kneading and pinching. His fingers pinched the red fruit, constantly picking it up and teasing it. Bursts of electricity flowed from his fingers. She couldn't help but raise her neck, sending her softness into his hands, hoping for more. He chuckled softly. "Wifey, say you love me." His fingers mischievously rubbed against her secret area. Suddenly he exerted force and pushed in. She frowned and let out a moan of pain and pleasure. "Wifey, say you love me." His hands moved faster. She could not help but clamp her legs together. Her voice was gentle and charming. "Hubby, I love you." With a ragged gasp, he held her close, replacing his fingers with his hot hardness and entering her. After a long while, he hugged her. A white light flashed through their minds and climbed to the peak at the same time. She leaned weakly against his chest. He kissed her forehead lovingly. After a short rest, he carried her into the bathroom. After washing her up, he carried her back to the bed. The two of them hugged each other and fell asleep. Songshu 566. Chapter 276. It had been 3 days since Su Yunqian jumped into the sea. The salvage team had yet to find her body. The Su family held on to their last hope. Madame Su burned incense and prayed to Buddha every day, hoping for her daughter's safe return. Su Bolin had aged a lot. In the dead of the night, he often sat alone in front of the window, blaming himself for being too harsh on his daughter. Su Jin, and had to take care of both his family and his company. There were dark circles under his eyes. However, on the 4th day, all their hopes were dashed. A tourist found a female corpse about 1 kilometer downstream from where Su Yunqian jumped into the sea. Due to the impact of the sea and rocks, the female corpse's face was disfigured. Her body was covered in wounds. The bones of her left hand and right foot were broken. 3 of her ribs were broken. Her body was swollen from being soaked in water. It was almost impossible to distinguish her face. However, the gold watch necklace on her neck exposed her identity. Opening the cover, there was a very small family photo. Su Bolin and Madame Su were sitting on chairs, each holding a child. Seeing Su Yunqian's body, Madame Su fainted on the spot. Su Jin, and held her tightly in his arms. Su Bolin staggered and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, the housekeeper supported him. A policeman took out a bag and handed it to Su Jin, and these are the remains of the deceased. We used the remains to identify the deceased. If the family has any questions, we can do a DNA test. Su Jin, and held the bag tightly and refused. No need. Their poor sister had already passed away. She should be buried in peace. How could they bear to disturb her? 2 days later, the Su family held a funeral. There were not many people who came to watch the ceremony. They were all close friends. Bailey's family was not present. Su Murong's family of 3 came. Su Xianxia wore a black trench coat and a black hat. The hat's brim covered her face with a veil. When they said goodbye to the body, Madame Su cried her heart out. Su Murong's eyes were also red. She went forward to hold her arm and helped her over from the coffin. After the ceremony ended, the people who attended the funeral gradually dispersed. The Su family also left in grief. Su Xianxia quietly stood in front of the tombstone. Her cold eyes through the veil fell on the photo on the tombstone. The corner of her mouth slowly hooked up into a strange arc. Xianxia, let's go. Su Murong patted her daughter's arm. And Su Xianxia followed his parents out of the cemetery. The sun shone on them through the thick branches. Even so, the silent cemetery still gave them a gloomy feeling. Su Murong and her husband accompanied their daughter back to the hospital and stayed for a while before leaving. Su Xianxia threw the hat on the sofa, revealing her entire face. Although she had already undergone 4 plastic surgeries, her face was still very scary. Her eyebrows were bald and her chin was covered with gully-like scars. In 2 days she would undergo her 5th plastic surgery. The doctor said that this plastic surgery would implant her eyebrows, and at that time her cheeks would look a lot better. Su Xianxia turned on the music. This was the first time she was so happy after being hospitalized. Su Yunxian had completely disappeared from her world. From now on, her only enemy was Xia Dong. Aha, just thinking about it made her feel good. Su Xianxia's wild laughter blended with the intense music. It was so strange that it made people shudder. Bailey Han's body recovered quickly. The stitches on his head had been removed and he was discharged from the hospital in about a week. He handed over the company's matters to Bailey Jing and Lu Zihao and became a hands-off boss. Every day he accompanied his wife and child. His entire temperament slowly changed. He became gentler and more patient. He enjoyed this kind of life. Every day when he opened his eyes, he could see Xia Dong lying in his arms. He leisurely ate breakfast, accompanied her to the garden, accompanied her to explore the ancient city, accompanied her to watch the sunrise and sunset, took care of Xiaoguai together. Every afternoon he would call his family in China and video chat with them. While chatting with his family, Bailey Han and Xia Dong found out about Su Yunxian's death. Xia Dong's first reaction was to hold onto Bailey Han's hand. She tilted her head and looked at him, her eyes filled with worry. Bailey Han held her hand tightly and stroked her hair. He pulled her over and leaned her on his shoulder. Under the setting sun, the couple sat on the balcony in silence. She leaned in his arms and he stroked her long hair. After a long time she slowly said, "Ahan, if you want to be alone for a while, He tilted his head and looked at her. His deep eyes melted with a touch of warmth. He said softly, "It's over. What happened between us is over." This kind of ending might be the best for her. Although he said that, Xia Dong could still tell that he was a little depressed. After all, he and Su Yunxian were childhood sweethearts. She had taken care of him during his most difficult times. Bailey Han seemed cold, but in reality he was very affectionate. Xia Dong understood his feelings and was not jealous at all. She reached out her hands and hugged his waist tightly. She said softly, "Ahan, if you want to come back to China to attend her funeral, I won't have any objections. There's no need." He kissed her forehead and whispered, "She hurt you so much. I haven't forgiven her yet." Xia Dong's heart warmed. She raised her head and kissed him on the lips. She smiled and said, "Let bygones be bygones. We must be good in the future." "Okay, we will be good." Bailey Han's eyes were filled with a smile. The smile gradually spread to his entire face. She raised her head and smiled like a flower. He scratched her little nose and said in a doting voice, "It's time for a walk. Let's go for a walk." "Can we not go? I don't want to move." She hugged his arm and acted shamelessly. "No." His voice was gentle and there was a smile on his lips. "Little lazy worm, appropriate exercise is good for you and the baby. Be good and get up for a walk." "Okay." Xia Dong was a little reluctant to leave his arms and stood up slowly. Bailey Han chuckled and put a shawl on her shoulders. He held her waist and slowly walked out of the villa. The golden sunset shone through the gaps in the leaves. The mottled light jumped on the old bluestone road. They walked hand in hand along the Tiber River. The good times were sealed in their memories. "Sir, buy a rose for Madame." A little girl holding a big bouquet of roses ran to them. She had golden hair and a sunny smile. She was as cute as a doll. Xia Dong thought of Xiao Guai when she saw the little girl. She couldn't help waving her hand. The little girl smiled and walked closer. "Madam, you're so beautiful." Xia Dong chuckled. "Xiao Bao, you have a sweet mouth." The little girl blinked her big eyes and smiled innocently. "I'm telling the truth, sir. You're very lucky to be able to marry such a beautiful wife." "I think so too." Bailey Han smiled and took out his wallet. "How much is this bouquet of roses?" The little girl smiled brightly. 100 euros. Bailey Han took out 100 euros and handed it to her. He took the roses from her hands. "Thank you, sir." "Thank you, madam. I wish you happiness." The little girl bowed with a smile and ran away happily. Bailey Han put the roses in front of Xia Dong and smiled. "Honey, this is for you." Xia Dong raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Thank you, but please hold it for me." "No problem. I'm always at your service." Bailey Han pointed to his cheek. "Reward." "Wow, you're so stingy." Xia Dong complained with a smile. She leaned forward and kissed him on the cheek. "Are you satisfied now, Mr. Bailey?" "I'd be even more satisfied if you kissed me here, Mrs. Bailey." Bailey Han touched his lips calmly. "In your dreams." Xia Dong rolled her eyes at him in amusement and took his arm. Bailey Han chuckled. He held his pregnant wife in one hand and the roses in the other. They were very eye-catching as they walked on the road. Xia Dong felt that she was about to be burned by the envious and jealous gazes of the other women. She couldn't help but tug at Bailey Han's sleeve and said, "It's all your fault. Why are you so good-looking?" Bailey Han raised his eyebrows good-naturedly. "Is it my fault that I'm good-looking?" "Yes. Otherwise, why would you attract so many admirers?" Xia Dong puffed up her cheeks. "Don't think that she didn't see the blonde beauty sitting on the bench over there. Why are you looking around? The handsome guy next to you is my husband. And those two beauties leaning against the bridge talking and laughing. Don't think that I don't understand Italian. Can you not praise my husband so loudly?" Bailey Han pinched her chubby cheeks in amusement. "I'm not angry." "Why are you so angry?" Xia Dong glared at him. "What do you mean? Are you angry that I'm blocking your admirers?" Bailey Han chuckled. He lifted her chin with his finger and gestured for her to look to the side. What's up with that wretched uncle looking at her lecherously? Also, what was up with that handsome blonde guy who was staring at her so intently? Wifey, even if you're pregnant, you're still as charming as ever. So, I want to stamp my seal to show that I own you." Bailey Han pulled her chin back. Under everyone's gaze, he kissed her lips. After tossing and turning for a while, he finally let go of her. She punched his chest in embarrassment. Bailey Han held her hand and whispered into her ear, "Did you see that? The handsome guy over there has a heartbroken expression." Xia Dong stole a glance. Wasn't that exaggerated? He just shrugged his shoulders regretfully. "Look, your market is much better than mine. I have to keep a close eye on you in case you run away with another handsome guy." Bailey Han nibbled on her earlobe playfully. A current ran through her body. Xia Dong couldn't help but tremble. She quickly pried his naughty mouth away and changed the topic. "Hubby, I'm tired. Let's go home." "Okay." Bailey Han chuckled. He ruffled her hair and wrapped his arm around her waist. They turned around and walked back. Under the setting sun, their shadows overlapped. It was harmonious and warm. At Songshu 566. Chapter 277. On the day of Su Yunxian's funeral, Mika Kito also appeared. Of course, he wasn't there to mourn Su Yunxian. Instead, he was there to see the tragic end of the person who hurt Xia Dong. He stood far away and waited for the crowd to disperse before walking to her tombstone. He looked coldly at the small photo on the tombstone and said in a deep voice, "I don't believe in ghosts and gods, nor do I believe in reincarnation. However, if you want revenge, come at me. If you dare to cause trouble for xianxia again, I will bury the entire Su family with you." The cold wind blew and the leaves rustled, but he didn't seem to hear it. He stood tall and straight like a pine tree, looking as handsome as a god. Suzaku stood 10 meters away from him. The corner of her eyes moved slightly as she looked at his cold and handsome profile. It was as if it was carved out of marble, perfect and cold. She knew that he wasn't heartless, but he had given all his love to a woman. On the way back, the two of them sat in the Maybach. Mikakito said indifferently, "Is there any news from Godfather on Jiangdao's side?" Suzuka replied, "Not yet. Godfather hasn't contacted Su Xingqian recently. Should we take action?" Mikakito said in a deep voice, "We can take action now. Now that news of Su Yunqian's death has spread, Godfather should be panicking. If he really cared about Su Xingqian, he wouldn't leave her in the lurch." "Okay, I'll pass the message to Jiangdao immediately." Su Xingqian's fifth plastic surgery was relatively successful. However, the strange thing was that she didn't wake up 2 days after the surgery. Even if it was because of the anesthetic, the effects wouldn't have lasted for so long. Xia Jinxing was about to go crazy. The attending doctor was also very anxious. He did a full body checkup for her but didn't find anything wrong. Su Murong sat in the attending doctor's office with a deep frown. "Doctor, my daughter still hasn't woken up. What's going on?" The doctor looked helpless. "We've already done a full body checkup on Miss Su, but we haven't found the problem yet." Su Murong's expression changed and she said sternly, "Doctor, if anything happens to my daughter, it will be your hospital's responsibility. This is a medical malpractice." The doctor's forehead was covered in sweat. "President Su, you can't say that. Miss Su's operation was very successful. This wasn't caused by the operation." Su Murong raised her eyebrows and looked angry. "Then tell me, why is my daughter unconscious? She was in a coma during the operation and didn't wake up after the operation. If it's not your hospital's fault, then whose fault is it?" This matter, we will investigate it thoroughly. President Su, the most important thing now is to wake your daughter up." The doctor tried his best to persuade the angry Su Murong. He also promised to quickly find the cause of Su Xingqian's coma and wake her up as soon as possible. But a promise is one thing and the result is another. After another day, Su Xingqian still hasn't woken up. Su Murong has already planned to take the hospital to court. The attending doctor's head was about to explode. In the end, he didn't let go of any possibility and took Su Xingqian's blood for a blood test. Unexpectedly, there was a shocking discovery. They found that there was an unknown toxin in Su Xingqian's blood. It was very likely that this toxin caused her to be in a coma. Doubts arose. What is the toxin in her body? How did it develop in her body? How do they remove the toxin? In order to cure Su Xingqian, the hospital contacted people from the research institute and asked them to study the toxin in her blood, hoping to find a cure. At the same time, Su Murong received an anonymous letter. The letter said that Su Xingqian has been poisoned and can only live for 10 days. After 10 days, she will die in her sleep. If you don't want her to die, find xuanhuan for help. Xuanhuan. When Su Murong saw this name, her body staggered and almost fainted on the ground. Fortunately, Xia Jinxing's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast enough to support her. Xia Jinxing helped her to the sofa. When she calmed down, he asked the question in his heart, "Wife, who is this xuanhuan? Can he really cure Xingqian's illness?" Su Murong's fingers tightly grasped the letter. Her eyes surged with a complicated look. After a long while, she slowly said, "You don't have to worry about this matter. I will handle it." "Wife, shut up." Su Murong suddenly fiercely roared at him. Xia Jinxing was startled. Although Su Murong's attitude towards him has been getting worse and worse over the years, she has never yelled at him so loudly. He opened his mouth and said with a dry voice, "Okay, I understand." Su Murong didn't even look at him. She pushed his hand away and went upstairs. However, her back seemed to be a little flustered, as if she was hiding some secret. At night, Su Murong didn't go downstairs for dinner. Xia Jinxing personally brought the food to the room. She picked up the bowl and threw it on the ground. She roared at him, "I'm not eating. Get out, get out." The broken porcelain flew into the hallway and the rice spilled all over the floor. The servant quickly came in to clean up. Xia Jinxing stood at the door for a moment before he turned around and went to the guest room. The servant quickly finished cleaning up and quickly left the room. He closed the door, afraid that Su Murong would vent her anger on him. In the spacious room, only Su Murong was left. She sat in front of the dressing mirror. The woman in the mirror was expressionless and her eyes were cold. After a long time, she got up and took down a painting hanging on the wall. A safe appeared on the wall. Then she took off the necklace around her neck. The pendant of the necklace was a delicate and small key. She inserted the key into the keyhole of the safe. Click, the safe opened. There was a mahogany box inside. She opened the box. Inside was a stack of old photos and letters. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the photos. Every photo was a photo of her and a man. The man was in his 20s. He was handsome and had an unbridled face. He had a pair of pitch-black eyes that emitted an unruly light. This man was xuanhuan. She used her fingers to stroke him in the photo and whispered, 23 years. We haven't seen each other for 23 years. If possible, I really don't want to see you for the rest of my life. She painfully closed her eyes. Tears slowly flowed from the corners of her eyes. 6 days. Su Xingqian only had 6 days left to live. Su Murong didn't have time to think about anything else. The most important thing now was to contact xuanhuan. She bribed the newspaper to let them publish a love poem. That love poem was written by xuanhuan. She didn't know if he would see this poem, but she had no other choice. She could only use this method to hint to him. Su Murong anxiously waited for a day but didn't get any news. Xia Zhenxing couldn't hold it in any longer. Wife, there are only 5 days left. How can we contact that xuanhuan? Su Murong impatiently said, you don't need to worry about this. You're responsible for communicating with the hospital and urging them to research the antidote as soon as possible. Xia Zhenxing opened his mouth but didn't say anything in the end. He silently went to the guest room. Ever since Su Xingqian was disfigured, the two of them slept in separate rooms. Su Murong laid on the bed but couldn't fall asleep. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, she suddenly heard a sound from the window. She quickly sat up on the bed and turned on the bedside lamp. She saw a black figure jump in from the window. The person took off the mask on his face and slowly walked towards the bed. Su Murong used her right hand to cover her mouth. Her eyes widened in disbelief. That face was very familiar. It was xuanhuan. Xuanhuan, also known as her godfather, walked to her side with his slender legs. His tall and straight body was like a pine tree. There was a faint smile on his face. Arong, long time no see. The word, Arong, made Su Murong's tears fall like rain. She tightly clenched her fist and suppressed her sobs. Xuanhuan stared at her for a long time. Suddenly, he sat beside her and reached out to pull her into his embrace. He gently said, Arong, how have you been all these years? Good. Su Murong squeezed the words out from between her teeth. Very good. Xuanhuan hugged her tightly and sighed softly. Arong, you still hate me. All the time. Su Murong's eyes were red as she gritted her teeth. His body stiffened. After a moment, he said softly, I thought that you would never want to see me again in this lifetime. She sniffled and tears welled up in her eyes again. However, she tried hard to suppress them. Her voice was hoarse as she said, I originally planned to never see you again, but this time I have no choice but to see you. Xingqian. Something happened to Xingqian. Xuanhuan's body trembled. He suddenly raised his head and stared at her. What happened to Xingqian? Su Murong pushed him away and moved back a little. She said, someone poisoned her. Within 10 days, if there is no antidote, she will die in a coma. Now there are only 5 days left. On the 4th day of her coma, that person sent me a letter. After she finished speaking, she took out a letter from the bedside table and handed it to Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan hurriedly read the letter. His face turned ugly. Su Murong said indifferently, Is it your enemy? Xuanhuan's fingers suddenly tightened around the letter. He said in a low voice, Yes. Do you have a clue? I suspect that it's Mikakito. Su Murong's eyes narrowed. Mikakito. Xingqian's scandal and drug addiction were also related to him. That's not all. Xingqian's disfigurement was also caused by Mikakito's subordinates. Xuanhuan's eyes were as cold as a venomous snake. He said eerily, I originally wanted to avenge Xingqian, but I didn't expect to be one step behind and lose everything. This time I was even checkmated by him. Su Murong frowned. Mikakito's motive is very obvious. He wants to use Xingqian to force you out. What should we do now? Xuanhuan's lips curled into a cold smile. He knows that I care about Xingqian, so he's using her to force me. Naturally, I can also use the people he cares about to force him. Su Murong's eyes moved slightly. But Xia Dong is overseas? Xuanhuan looked at her and smiled. Arong, other than Xia Dong, there's someone else he cares about. Su Murong frowned, then relaxed. I understand. He stared into her eyes. There was a complicated look in his eyes. He said gently, Arong, thank you for giving birth to Xingqian. Su Murong was stunned. She wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't say anything. Xuanhuan leaned over and hugged her. Her personality is very similar to yours. Every time I see her, I feel as if you're by my side. Su Murong's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. You promised me that you wouldn't disturb her life after she was born. I lied to you. He rubbed his chin against her hair and whispered, "Not only did I get close to her, but I also took her as my goddaughter. I really want her to call me daddy one day." Her voice was hoarse. "Xianhuan, you didn't keep your word. You promised me." "Arong, don't be agitated. I didn't tell her the truth. I really want to know if she looks like you or me. After seeing her, I can't control myself anymore. I really want to see her smile at me and act coquettishly. Arong, it's been 23 years. We haven't seen each other for 23 years. Don't hate me anymore, okay?" She shook her head in tears. "That's impossible. Xianhuan, I hate you. My life has been ruined by your hands." "Arong, I'm sorry." Xianhuan held her face and kissed her eyes. He kissed away the tears on her face. "Let go of me." She struggled hard, trying to push him away. His hands were like iron pincers, imprisoning her tightly. "Xianhuan, let go of me," she shouted sternly. He suddenly kissed her lips and blocked her scolding. He kissed her fiercely and pressed her onto the big bed. She clenched her fists and pounded his chest, making dissatisfied sounds in her throat. He turned a deaf ear to her. His nimble tongue fiercely swept her mouth, making her almost unable to breathe. His hand reached under the silk nightgown and caressed her chest. Although she had entered the ranks of middle-aged people, her body was well maintained. Her skin was full of elasticity and her chest was firm and soft. He kneaded her pink chest hard and his other hand reached between her legs. She glared at him angrily and pounded him with her fists. He suddenly let go of her lips and bit her earlobe while saying softly, "Arong, I miss you. I miss you so much. If I could choose again, I definitely wouldn't let go of you." Her body froze and her resistance stopped. She stared at him in a daze. His deep eyes were filled with pain. "Arong, I love you. I've always loved you." Her tears poured out again. He lovingly kissed her eyes and carefully licked away the tears. His hands gently moved around her sensitive areas. She gradually gave up resisting and in a daze she hugged his neck with both hands. He took off his clothes with one hand and threw them on the ground. He straightened his body and entered. Soon the room was filled with lewd sounds and ambiguous sounds of men and women. Fortunately, the room's soundproofing was good. No matter what tricks they played, no one would find out. About 2 hours later, Su Murong was already unconscious from exhaustion. Xianhuan kissed her forehead and placed her on the bed. He got up and put on his clothes. He looked back at her deeply and jumped out of the window, quickly disappearing into the night. Attention Songshu 566. Chapter 278. Many cars were parked at the entrance of Imperial Kindergarten. Many rich madams, grandpas and grandmas were waiting for their children at the school entrance. A black Cadillac was parked closest to the school entrance. Through the half-open window, 2 men in black suits could be seen sitting in the back seat. The school bell rang. A group of children walked out of the school entrance. When the parents saw their children, they waved and called their children's names. The children quickly ran towards their parents, creating a lively scene. The people sitting in the Cadillac stared at the school entrance seriously. After about 10 minutes, when the crowd had dispersed, 2 little guys wearing the same clothes and carrying the same small backpack leisurely walked out of the school entrance. "Move!" someone in the car shouted. 2 men in black suits quickly opened the car door and ran to the 2 children. They each picked them up and returned to the car at an extremely fast speed. The car sped off. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi were carried in the arms of the 2 men. Xiao Bao's dark eyes turned and looked at Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi was also looking at him and the 2 of them smiled at the same time. Xiao Bao looked up and sized up the man who was carrying him. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes and he looked a little like Crayon Shinchan. "Uncle Shinchan, where are you taking us?" The man's thick eyebrows furrowed. "What did he mean by Uncle Shinchan?" he said in a deep voice. "Little brat, if you are obedient, we won't hurt you." Xiao Bao blinked, tilted his head and asked, "Uncle Shinchan, is this kidnapping?" "Little brat, if you continue to be long-winded, I will seal your mouth." The man with thick eyebrows was already a little impatient. Children were troublesome, so he did not like to kidnap children. Xiao Bao quickly covered his mouth with his small hands. He blinked pitifully and said vaguely, "I won't be long-winded, Uncle Shinchan. Please don't seal my mouth." "Umph." The man with thick eyebrows sneered and ignored him. Xiao Yi quietly scanned the interior of the car. Including her and Xiao Bao, there were a total of 5 people, a driver and 2 kidnappers. The man who was hugging him was expressionless. He looked dull, but his eyes were very sharp, hiding a murderous aura. Xiao Yi poked his arm. "Uncle Woody, can you put me down? Your arm is hurting me." "Uncle Wood." The blockhead's eyebrows moved imperceptibly. His thin lips lifted as he said indifferently, "Between my arm and the rope, you can choose whichever one you like." Xiaoyi looked confused. "Uncle Woody, I don't understand what you mean." The blockhead lowered his head and stared into his eyes. "It means that if I put you down, I have to tie your hands and feet with a rope. Do you understand?" Oh. Xiaoyi nodded vigorously. "I understand. It's uncomfortable to have my hands and feet tied up. Uncle Mudo, I'll have to trouble you to carry me." The driver suddenly said, "Lao Sha, cover the eyes of these two brats." The man with thick eyebrows coughed and said, "There's no need. They're not even 5 years old. They don't know anything. Just in case. These two brats are not ordinary children. They're very smart." "All right then." The man with thick eyebrows called Lao Sha took out 2 strips of black cloth from his pocket. He held one for himself and handed the other to his companion. "Muzi, this is for you. Tie it up for the brats." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao burst into laughter at the same time. Xiao Yi rubbed her stomach that was hurting from laughing and said intermittently, "Muzi, Uncle Woody, this name suits you so well." "Shut up." Muzi, who was ridiculed by the two brats, was so embarrassed that he flew into a rage. He slapped Xiao Yi on the head. Xiao Yi burst into tears. Her howling was so loud that it made people's eardrums buzz. Xiao Bao's eyes were covered by a black cloth by Lao Sha. Although he couldn't see, he immediately burst into tears when he heard Xiao Yi's cries. It was as if he was infected. One child crying was bearable, but 2 children crying at the same time was like a demon's voice. It almost drove the 3 men in the car crazy. The veins on Lao Sha's forehead throbbed. He shouted, "Stop crying. If you cry again, I'll immediately throw you into the river to feed the fish." "Wah wah wah." Damn it, they cried even louder. The driver frowned and raised his voice. "Lao Sha, Muzi, seal the mouths of these 2 brats." Lao Sha and Muzi immediately tore off the tape and sealed the children's mouths. The crying stopped abruptly, and the 3 men finally heaved a sigh of relief. The 2 brats' eyes were covered with black cloth, their mouths were sealed with tape, and their cheeks were stained with tears. They looked like they had been kidnapped. An hour later, the group arrived at an abandoned factory. Lao Sha and Muzi took the 2 children out of the car, grabbed them by the back of their collars and dragged them into the factory. On the 2nd floor of the factory, the godfather stood by the railing in a black coat. He stared coldly at the hall downstairs. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao's hands and feet were tied, and they were each tied to a chair. Their mouths were covered with tape, and they were making whimpering sounds from their throats. The black cloth was wet with tears and they looked very pitiful. The godfather waved his hand coldly and Lao Sha nodded. He tore off the black cloth covering the children's eyes, revealing 2 pairs of big watery eyes. Then he tore off the tape on their mouths and the stinging pain made them scream. Xiao Bao cowered in fear and said pitifully, "Uncle, you said you wouldn't hurt us. Let us go home quickly." Xiao Yi stared blankly at the ground in front of her as if she was scared silly. The godfather's lips curled into a sinister smile. Previously he had heard that Bailey Han's 2 sons were very smart, and he thought that they were very impressive. Now it seemed that they were just ordinary children. They would be scared and cry when they were kidnapped. That was exactly what he wanted. Lao Sha squatted in front of the children, and a kind smile appeared on his face. "Your name is Xiao Yi and your name is Xiao Bao, right? Xiao Bao, I heard that you have a good relationship with Mika Keto. As long as you call him and ask him to come and pick you up, Uncle will let you go home, okay?" Xiao Bao looked at Lao Sha pitifully with her big watery eyes. "Uncle, will you keep your word?" Lao Sha said confidently, "Of course. Uncle never lies to children." Xiao Bao nodded in Gigai's direction. "Uncle, give me your phone. I'll call Uncle Shen." "What a good child." Lao Sha rubbed his hair in satisfaction. Muzi handed over a cell phone. Xiao Bao moved his tied hands and said with a frown, "Uncle, hand." Lao Sha smiled and said, "It's okay. Tell Uncle Mika Keto's number and Uncle will call it for you." Xiao Bao hesitated for a moment before saying, "Okay then." He said a string of numbers and Lao Sha pressed the number on the cell phone. After the call was connected, he pressed the speaker button and put the phone to Xiao Bao's ear. Xiao Bao sniffed and said aggrievedly, "Uncle Shen, it's Xiao Bao." Mika Keto's gentle voice sounded. "Xiao Bao, what happened?" Xiao Bao started crying. "Uncle Shen, 2 very strange uncles carried Xiao Yi and me into the car and took us to a very strange place. Our hands and feet are tied. Come and take us home quickly." Mika Keto's voice suddenly rose as she asked nervously, "Xiao Bao, are you hurt?" Xiao Bao shook his head. "No, Uncle Shen didn't hit us. Oh no, Uncle Mushin slapped Xiao Yi. Lao Sha frowned, took the cell phone and put it to his ear. Mikakito, you heard it? Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi are in my hands. If you don't want them to get hurt, give Su Xingqian the antidote immediately. Once I hear that Su Xingqian has woken up, I will let them go home. Mikakito said coldly, give the phone to Godfather. I want to talk to him. Lao Sha raised his head and looked in Godfather's direction. Godfather nodded. He was not worried that Mikakito would delay the call to locate the location of the communication because he had already installed a jamming device in the cell phone to ensure that the signal would not be tracked. Wait a minute. Lao Sha ran to the second floor and handed the phone to Godfather. Godfather said calmly, Mikakito, if you don't want anything to happen to the two children, do as my people say. I have already sent people to the hospital. Su Xingqian will wake up in an hour and tell me the location of the children. I want to ensure their safety. Tell you the location so that you can bring a large number of people to kill them? Mikakito, don't be so naive. I will tell you the location after I receive a call from Xingqian and confirm that she is safe. Mikakito said in a low voice, how do I know that you won't cheat me? Godfather chuckled. Then you can only believe that I won't cheat you. Alright, that's all. I will call you in an hour to confirm Xingqian's situation. Before Mikakito could reply, he had already hung up the phone and tossed it to Lao Sha. Look after the two children. Lao Sha knew that he was going to leave. He lowered his voice and asked, Godfather, what should we do when Miss wakes up? Xuanhuan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He raised his right hand and quickly made a chopping motion. His intention was clear. Kill. Even if they could not kill Mikakito directly, they could torture him by killing the people he cared about. Lao Sha nodded in understanding and turned to look at the living room downstairs. The two children had their backs to them and did not know that their fate had already been decided by them. Footsteps could be heard as Godfather walked down the stairs step by step. Xiao Yi, who had been silent all this time, suddenly raised her head and said, I want to pee. Xiao Bao said, I want to pee too. Attention Songshu 566. Chapter 279. Brats, you're so troublesome. Lao Sha grumbled as he bent down to remove their pants. Take off your pants and pee here. Xiao Yi shouted. No. I'm a boy and I can't pee here. I want to go to the toilet. Xiao Bao also shouted. I want to go to the toilet too. Lao Sha was getting a headache from their quarrel and waved his hand. Mu Zi, bring them to the toilet. He does not believe that these two brats can come up with any tricks. Mu Zi untied them from the chair and untied the ropes around their ankles. She grabbed one child with each hand and walked towards the toilet. The Godfather turned a blind eye to all of this. In his heart, little Wingzi and little Treasure were just two ordinary children who would cry out in fear. There was no need for him to pay attention to them. He strode towards the car parked outside the factory. Bang! A bullet flew toward the Godfather at lightning speed. He reacted quickly and pulled Lao Sha over to use him as a shield. The bullet pierced Lao Sha's chest and stayed in his body. His eyes widened in disbelief when he saw Mikakito, Suzaku and the rest. Blood flowed out from his chest and his body slowly fell to the ground. Bang! Bang! Gunshots rang out. Lao Sha had been used as a human shield by the Godfather, and his chest was riddled with holes. His eyes widened unwillingly as he breathed his last. The Godfather fought back with a pistol in one hand and used Lao Sha's body as a shield in the other. Two other assassins in black suits covered him. The group quickly retreated into the factory. After entering the factory, they quickly lowered the big iron gate to block the powerful firepower for a while. Quick! Bring the children over. The Godfather ordered. One hitman ran towards the toilet while the Godfather and another hitman guarded the entrance. Mu Zi had just led the children into the toilet when he heard the sound of gunfire. He knew that something was wrong and stopped the children from peeing. Instead, he grabbed their arms and dragged them outside. Little Wingzi coldly said, Stupid blockhead, I've tolerated you for a long time. Mu Zi instinctively turned around and heard a gunshot. He felt a sharp pain in his chest. The moment he fell to the ground, he saw a black figure jumping in from the window with a gun. Jiang Dao, untie our hands. Xiao Bao stretched out his hands when he saw the black figure. Jiang Dao kicked away the pistol beside Mu Zi and shot him in the head. Then he quickly untied the ropes on the two children's wrists, picked them up one by one, and handed them out of the toilet window. Someone was waiting for them outside. Everything happened too fast. When the Godfather's hitman arrived, all he saw was a corpse. Before he could react, a cold gun was pointed at his head. Jiang Dao slowly walked out from behind the door and asked in a deep voice, How many people are there in the factory? 6. Jiang Dao's eyes flickered. He already had an idea. That meant that there were only 3 survivors left in the factory. He slapped the back of the hitman's neck and the latter fainted on the ground. Jiang Dao reported the situation in the factory to Beitang Shen through the intercom. Then he quietly moved his feet and walked towards the hall. At the same time, 2 more bodyguards jumped in through the window of the toilet and followed behind Jiang Dao to surround the Godfather and the others. When the Godfather realized that something was wrong, Jiang Dao's group of 3 was already less than 50 meters away from him with guns pointed at their chests. "Put down your guns." Jiang Dao barked coldly. The Godfather's face suddenly changed. He still wanted to fight back, but suddenly he heard a loud bang. The iron gate was knocked open by the car. The assassin next to him did not have time to dodge and was thrown to the hard wall by the car. After his body hit the wall, he was bounced to the cement floor. His blood was all over the ground. He did not even have the chance to make a sound before he died. Lu Xing pushed the door open and got out of the car with a pistol in her hand. Mika Kito and Suzaku walked side by side at the entrance. His tall figure exuded a strong murderous aura. His deep eyes were cold and filled with bloodlust. He slowly walked towards the Godfather with an oppressive aura. He stood 2 meters away from the Godfather and said coldly, "Xuanhuan, we meet again." At this time, the Godfather was already surrounded by people. He straightened his back as if he didn't notice his current situation at all. He smiled slightly. "Beitang Shen, it's good that you're ruthless. I want to know how I lost." Mika Kito waved her hand, and footsteps could be heard at the entrance. Then Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao walked in slowly. They didn't look scared at all. Xiao Bao raised her chin arrogantly with a smug smile on her face. Xiao Yi, on the other hand, stood straight with a faint smile on her handsome face. Xiao Bao glanced at the Godfather in disdain and said, "Grandpa, you seem to look down on children." Xiao Yi chuckled and said, "Uncle Shin knew that you would do something bad to us, so he installed a tracker in our shoes. You were so careless that you didn't check our things. You really look down on children." A hint of regret flashed across the Godfather's eyes. He was indeed too careless. Xiao Bao chuckled. The wily old fox actually fell into the hands of 2 children. That must be a terrible feeling. Xiao Yi patted him on the shoulder and said seriously, "Xiao Bao, the old fox is regretting it so much that his intestines are turning green. Don't provoke him anymore." The Godfather suddenly laughed out loud. After a few laughs, his laughter stopped abruptly. He stared at the 2 children viciously. "You think you're smart, but you were used by Mika Kito." Xiao Yi stared at him coldly. "If you're referring to the trap that we set for you, we did it willingly. It has nothing to do with Uncle Shin at all. You've miscalculated if you want to drive a wedge between us." Xiao Bao snorted. "Old fox, it's useless for you to say anything now. You're going to be in trouble soon. Xiao Yi, let's go. The scene later will be bloody, and it's not suitable for children under the age of 18 to watch." "Yes, that's right. Let's go." The 2 little guys put their arms around each other's shoulders and left as if they were good brothers. The Godfather looked at Mika Kito and smiled. "Mika Kito, what are you going to do with me?" Mika Kito was expressionless as she said indifferently, "I can give you a chance to live." "Condition? Who's Su Yunqian's backer?" The Godfather smiled. "Even you can't find out, so how would I know? Mika Kito, if you want to kill me, just kill me. I've already seen the woman I love the most. My death is worth it. A man's words are kind when he's about to die. Can you promise me something? You want me to let Su Xingqian go?" "That's right. Xingqian is innocent. I was the one who hurt Xiaodong. You can target me alone. Let her go." Mika Kito pursed her lips. "If I'm not wrong, she's your biological daughter." The Godfather paused. "How do you know?" Other than him and Su Murong, no one else knew about this, including Xingqian herself. Mika Kito sneered. "You're cunning, cold-blooded, and heartless. You don't care about other people's lives, but you care about Su Xingqian. You're even willing to take risks for her. Other than this, I can't think of any other reason." The Godfather sneered. "Cunning, cold-blooded, and heartless. These 2 words describe you. Mika Kito, you're indeed powerful, but like me, you have a weakness. My weakness is Xingqian, and your weakness is Xiaodong and her children. When you don't have a weakness, then you'll be an invincible god of war. What a pity." Mika Kito said indifferently. "I never wanted to become a god. What's the point of living for a person without emotions? It was because of some people that his life became colorful. It was because of some people that he cared about. He enjoyed this feeling." The Godfather sighed. A complicated look appeared in the Godfather's eyes as he sighed. "You've seen through things very clearly. Unfortunately, I didn't understand this when I was younger. I thought that I would be able to achieve greatness if I stopped loving and focused all my attention on my career. I did, but the older I get, the more regret I feel. I really want to fulfill my responsibility as a father. Beiding, please let Xianxia go. Mika Keto looked at him calmly. I can let her go, but you have to give me something in exchange. The godfather said without hesitation. You've destroyed most of my power in a city, but the information network is still there. I'll give it all to you. Also, I have a few properties and a sum of money in my bank account. I can give it all to you. Beiding waved his hand. Words are no guarantee. I've already prepared the contract. Sign it. The godfather didn't expect him to have it all planned out. He smiled bitterly and glanced at the contract. He didn't rush to sign it. I'll sign it when the hospital tells me that Xianxia is safe. Mika Keto raised his eyebrows and didn't object. A few minutes later, the godfather's phone suddenly rang. He looked at the caller ID and quickly pressed the video call button. Xianxia. Xianxia's bandaged face appeared on the screen. Godfather, I'm fine now. The godfather's eyes welled up with tears. He nodded repeatedly. It's good that you're fine. Xianxia, let me take a good look at you. Godfather, don't cry. I'm fine now. The godfather wiped his eyes. I'm happy. Xianxia, I'm going abroad for a while. Take care of yourself. Listen to your mommy and tell her that I love you. Xianxia was stunned. Godfather, you know my mommy. Yes, we used to be old friends. Xianxia bit his lip and asked, Godfather, when are you coming back? Welfare Songshu 566. Chapter 280. I might not be back for a long time. Xianxia, take care of yourself and your mommy. You're a big girl now. Don't make your mommy sad, okay? Xianxia's heart surged with an uneasy feeling. Godfather, did something happen to you? The godfather smiled. It's nothing. I'm fine. Xianxia, that's it. I'm hanging up. Okay. Godfather, have a safe trip. You have to take care of yourself too. I'll miss you a lot. Remember to contact me when you're overseas. The godfather choked out, okay. His fingers trembled as he hung up the phone. Mika Keto said calmly, you can sign the contract now. The godfather took a pen and signed the contract. After he handed the contract to Jianghu, he calmed down and said calmly, I'm done. You can do it. Mika Keto waved her hand. Jianghu suddenly attacked and hit the godfather on the back of his head. The godfather fell to the ground. 2 bodyguards came forward and carried the godfather out of the factory. They threw him into the trunk of the car. Jianghu bowed and asked, Boss, what do you plan to do with him? Mika Keto's eyes were cold. Throw him to Africa to keep old K company. It would be too easy for him to die so easily. From then on, the godfather disappeared from a city's underworld. His remaining power was taken over by Mika Keto. Su Morong and Xianxia never saw the godfather again. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were whispering to each other. After Mika Keto got into the car, she stretched out her hand and snorted. You two little things. Didn't I tell you not to act rashly? Why did you run out of the school gate and let the godfather catch you? Xiao Bao blinked her beautiful big eyes. Her expression was innocent and cute. Uncle Shin, we did it to catch the godfather. Look, we succeeded. Don't be angry. Mika Keto ruffled his hair helplessly. What if he hurts you? You two troublesome little bastards. It's okay. Look, we're fine now. Xiao Yi smiled fawningly. If Godfather really wants to harm us, don't we still have you, Uncle Shin? You're not allowed to act on your own in the future. Mika Keto scolded them with a straight face. The 2 brats had no idea how nervous she was when she found out they were kidnapped. The 2 little guys looked at each other and nodded in unison. Yes, yes. From now on, we will be obedient to Gigai and won't act on our own. I hope you keep your word. Mika Keto felt a great deal of pressure facing these 2 highly intelligent kids. In the evening, during the video call with Xia Dong, the 2 little guys danced around and recounted what happened during the day. At the end, the 2 brothers proudly raised their little chins. Mommy, Daddy, we're awesome, aren't we? We helped Uncle Shin defeat Godfather. Xia Dong broke out in a cold sweat. Bailey Han patted her back comfortingly and scolded with a straight face, how could the 2 of you do such a dangerous thing? Xiao Bao said aggrievedly, we already calculated the time. There won't be any accidents. Xiao Yi pouted. Godfather intends to use us to threaten Uncle Shen. Before he achieves his goal, he won't do anything to us. Yeah, and it's useless for us to pretend to be scared. Godfather won't take us seriously and won't hurt us on purpose. Yes, that's right. Daddy, you're worrying too much. This time, not only was Bailey Han angry but Xia Dong was also furious. she said angrily. Do the two of you think you're so great and that you've calculated it well? Don't you know that there's a saying, it's better to be safe than sorry? If the kidnappers beat you up, cut off your limbs or even blind you, what would you do? If your Uncle Shin didn't arrive in time, the two of you would have been shot. Do you know that? Xia Dong almost roared at the end of her sentence and tears welled up in her eyes. Bailey Han quickly pulled her into his arms and gently patted her back. Honey, don't be agitated. Be good and take a deep breath. Xiao Bao panicked and said pitifully, Mommy, I'm sorry. Don't be angry. We won't do it again. Xiao Yi bit her lip and was about to cry. Mommy, don't be agitated. It's not good for the baby in your stomach. We'll be obedient in the future. Bailey Han's face darkened and he took out his father's authority. Xiao Yi, Xiao Bao, you have to take this as a warning. If you do it again, I'll punish you very severely. The two brothers said sullenly, oh, and then looked at Xia Dong carefully. Mommy, don't be angry. Xia Dong lay on Bailey Han's chest and ignored them. Bailey Han stroked her hair and said to the two little guys, Mommy's in a bad mood today. I don't want to talk to you for the time being. You two should rest early. The two brothers were like frosted eggplants. They drooped their heads and said, Goodbye, Daddy and Mommy. Then they turned off the video. Bailey Han tightened his arms and said softly, Honey, don't be angry. I've already taught them a lesson for you. They probably won't be able to sleep well tonight. Xia Dong snorted through her nose. It's good that they can't sleep. Otherwise they won't learn their lesson. Although she said that she was angry, she was actually more worried. She was worried that they would become more and more self-assertive and difficult to control. In a situation where they didn't have the ability to protect themselves, they still put themselves in danger. Xia Dong couldn't wait to drag them in front of her and spank their little butts to teach them a lesson. Okay, I don't know who they took after. Bailey Han stroked her hair. Although he said this with a smile, there was an imperceptible worry in his eyes. It seemed that after returning to China, he would have to send them to a secret base to learn martial arts. Without the ability to protect themselves, it was always worrying. Of course they took after you. I'm not that stupid, Xia Dong said angrily. Bailey Han chuckled. Is that so? Why do I remember that someone was very stupid and put herself in danger several times? For example, that time when she was trying to help a lost little girl find her mother, she was tricked into going to the ladies' room and was kidnapped. Another example. Xia Dong hurriedly covered his mouth. Okay. I know I'm stupid, okay? Bailey Han's eyes were full of smiles. He pulled her hand away and lowered his head to peck her rosy lips. He said in a low voice, Honey, it's time for lunch break. Do you want me to carry you to bed? As her belly grew bigger, she became more and more lazy. If she could lie down, she wouldn't sit, and if she could sit, she wouldn't stand. Bailey Han would tease her from time to time, saying that the baby in her belly must be a little lazy worm. Carry me. Xia Dong stretched out her arms and hugged his neck, rubbing against his chest comfortably. His right hand went around her waist and carried her steadily. He walked towards the bed step by step with great care. His eyes were slightly lowered and his long eyelashes covered his eyelids. There was a gentle smile on his sexy thin lips. She couldn't help but reach out and touch his eyelashes. She whispered, Hey, why are your eyelashes so long and thick? They seem to be longer than mine. She was so jealous. Bailey Han stopped in his tracks and smiled helplessly. Honey, if you like, I'll let you touch me as much as you want after I put you on the bed. How about that? Okay. Gigai retracted her hand. She was very easy to talk to. Good girl. He chuckled. His hands tightened as he walked to the bed and gently placed her on it. He stroked her hair. Whose poem do you want to listen to today? She thought about it seriously and smiled. I don't want to listen to you recite poems today. She patted the spot beside her. Sleep with me. Okay. He lay down beside her, close to her, and hugged her. His chin rested on her hair and his hand held hers. Their fingers intertwined, and they slowly landed on her bulging belly, gently rubbing it. She looked up at him. As expected, a pair of gentle and smiling eyes met hers. She grinned and reached out her other hand to touch his face. Close your eyes. He closed his eyes as he was told. She carefully touched his eyelashes and sighed. So beautiful. He chuckled softly. His magnetic voice sounded happy and gentle. Xia Dong didn't sleep very well. With her bulging belly, it was difficult for her to turn around and she could only maintain one position. Every time she impatiently moved her body in her sleep, Bailey Han would gently hold her and help her turn around. They repeated this several times every night. Her skin was as white as snow in his arms. Her spaghetti-strapped nightgown would occasionally slip off the shoulder straps, revealing her fair skin and deep cleavage. She was still unaware. In her sleep, her little hands would unconsciously touch him. All of this was seducing him. Every night, when he saw her soft little hands grabbing his clothes and her pink lips slightly open as she slept soundly, his heart would throb. He wanted to be impulsive, but in the end he desperately suppressed that desire. He could only relieve himself by kissing her. So every morning when Xiaodong woke up, she would find many suspicious marks on her neck or chest. The child was already more than 6 months old. Her legs had begun to swell. At night, Bailey Han would sometimes hear her faint moans in her sleep and his heart would ache. He quietly got up and gently kneaded her swollen legs. From her legs to her toes, he didn't let go of any part of her. He even specially consulted a masseuse and learned a few massage techniques. Every day he would massage her regularly, which greatly reduced the pain of pregnancy. Every time, Xiaodong would lean into his arms and praise him contentedly. "Hubby, you're so good." Bailey Han would kiss her forehead tenderly. He couldn't imagine the pain she suffered when she was pregnant with the triplets. He wanted to make up for that missing relationship, so no matter how much he did, he always felt that it wasn't enough. Attention Songshu 566. Chapter 281. The sky was clear and the sun was warm. Bailey Han accompanied Xiaodong for her prenatal checkup. He drove while she sat in the passenger seat. Along the way, she stole glances at him from time to time. She bit her red lips and loosened them. He noticed the slight hesitation between her eyebrows. He smirked. "Honey, do you have something to say to me?" Xiaodong twisted her fingers. She hadn't mentioned her illness to him since he came to Italy. Should she tell him now? Forget it, she didn't want to tell him now. He was driving. It would be dangerous if he got agitated, Xiaodong chuckled. "Actually, it's nothing." Bailey Han raised his eyebrows and didn't ask further. If she didn't want to tell him, he wouldn't force her. The doctor in charge of Xiaodong's checkup was Terence, the most famous doctor in the obstetrics and gynecology department. He was in his 40s, had blonde hair and blue eyes, and had a gentle personality. He would also be her midwife. Terence flipped through her medical records and compared the results with today's checkup results. He smiled gently. "Madam, good news. The fibroid in your uterus is slowly shrinking. If the situation develops well, the fibroid may disappear automatically." Bailey Han's eyes suddenly narrowed and his face darkened. However, because of the occasion, he didn't say anything. His hands were tightly clenched into fists. "Really?" Xiaodong was pleasantly surprised. "Then what do I need to do?" "Maintain a happy mood, exercise appropriately, and cooperate with the treatment. The rest depends on God's arrangement." Terence shrugged. There were many cases of fibroids being cured without treatment, but it was the first time he had seen a malignant tumor like Xiaodong's that had shrunk without treatment. Coming out of Terence's office, Bailey Han exuded a gloomy aura. He held Xiaodong's waist with a sullen face. She looked at him carefully, held his arm and said, "Honey, let's talk." Bailey Han stopped in his tracks and stared at her with his deep eyes. His heart was filled with all kinds of complicated emotions. In the end, he still suppressed his emotions. He replied and helped her to sit on the sofa in the living room. Xiaodong bit her lip and said in a low voice, I had a prenatal checkup 2 months ago and found that I had uterine fibroids. Why did you hide it from me?" he asked in a low voice. She raised her head and looked at him. "Your brain was affected by a foreign object at that time, and your memory was unstable. I didn't dare to provoke you with these things." He stared at her deeply and many images flashed through his mind. Among them, he had temporarily lost his memory and hurt her. He had even told her to abort the child and divorce. He hugged her tightly. "Honey, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." "No, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. Look, I'm getting better now. As long as I persevere, everything will get better." She patted his back gently. He felt sorry and guilty. He gently stroked her long hair and said in a low voice, "You didn't want to provoke me because you were sick, so you left, right?" She replied softly and chuckled. "Hubby, no matter what happens to me, you'll always be by my side, right?" "Of course," he answered firmly. "That's enough, isn't it? You'll always be by my side. We'll overcome all the difficulties together. Don't worry about the past." She raised her head and looked at him with smiling eyes. His hands on her shoulders tightened. His Adam's apple bobbed and his eyes were filled with deep affection. She understood and smiled brightly at him. "Honey, it's all thanks to you that my condition is getting better. Because you've made me feel so happy during this period of time. Thank you for making me so happy." Bailey Han knew that she wanted to use this method to dispel the guilt in his heart. The corner of his lips slowly curled up and he patted her head. Honey, thank you. You're welcome. Xiaodong smiled playfully and reached out to pat his head. His hair had already grown green roots and was a little prickly. Even if he had such a special hairstyle, he was still the most handsome in her eyes. Naughty. Bailey Han's eyes were full of smiles as he scratched her perky nose. Xiaodong also pinched his nose and tilted her head to ask, Handsome, can we go home now? Yes, madam. Bailey Han held her right hand like a gentleman and kissed the back of it. The two of them looked at each other and smiled faintly. He held her waist and walked out of the hospital. When they reached the entrance of the hospital, Bailey Han suddenly stopped in his tracks. Xiaodong was puzzled. What's wrong? He didn't answer but squatted down. She wanted to see what he was doing, but her bulging belly blocked her view. She felt his hands fiddling with the back of her feet for a while. She was still confused, but he had already stood up and chuckled. The shoelace is untied. She was stunned and had an indescribable feeling in her heart until he held her hand. Honey, let's go. Oh, okay. He supported her and walked step by step very seriously. She looked up at his side profile. From this angle she could see his sharp chin and straight nose. The originally hard lines on his face looked incomparably gentle because of the smile on his lips. She suddenly felt a surge of warmth in her heart as she stared blankly at him. He suddenly turned his head and smiled helplessly. Honey, pay attention when you walk. If you want to look, I'll let you look as much as you want when we get home. She blushed and mumbled, I'm not looking at you. His eyelashes fluttered happily and he readily accepted her advice. Yeah, you're not looking at me. I'm thinking too much. But it's better to pay attention when you walk. He didn't dare to imagine how she survived when she was pregnant with the triplets. How could he not worry about a little woman who was even distracted when walking? She pursed her lips. I know. He chuckled softly. As time passed, Xiaodong's condition slowly improved, but Xiaoguai's condition wasn't optimistic. Due to the effects of the chemotherapy, her beautiful hair had all fallen out. Her pink little face had become as pale as a sheet. Her skin and mucous membranes were bleeding from time to time. Her body and limbs often had large patches of ecchymosis or blood spots. The bleeding from her gums was also more serious. Sometimes when the nurse fed her food, she would even vomit 1 or 2 mouthfuls of blood. In the sterile ward, Xiaoguai's small body lay in the middle of a pile of tubes. Her wrist was hooked up to an 4-drip, and the medicine in the medicine bottle flowed slowly into her body through the tubes. Xiaodong and Bailey Han wore protective clothing and sat by her bed. Xiaodong held her cold little hand and tears welled up in her eyes. Mommy? She opened her eyes slightly, and a dazed smile appeared on her pale little face. Daddy? Daddy is here? Bailey Han strode forward and squatted by her bed. He wrapped his warm hands around Xiaodong's and Xiaoguai's hands. Gigai, we're here. Don't be afraid. Xiaoguai had been tormented by her illness for a long time, but she was sensible enough not to cry in front of her parents. According to the caregiver, she had once heard her sobbing quietly under the blankets at night. However, at this moment, her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. Her small nose twitched and her voice was hoarse. Mommy, Daddy, I miss brother and brother-y. Will I never see them again? Xiaodong's eyes were brimming with tears. She bit her lip and forced herself to hold them back. Bailey Han held their hands tightly and said gently, Gigai, you'll be fine. Daddy will bring your brothers over to visit you tomorrow, okay? Xiaoguai grunted in a nasal voice and said intermittently, Yesterday Susan, who was in the ward next door, was pushed away. The nurse said that she went to heaven. Susan said that she wanted to celebrate my birthday with me. Boo-hoo. Her tears were like beads on a broken necklace that kept falling. Susan was an 8-year-old girl who was very cute. She had leukemia, and because they couldn't find a bone marrow match, she couldn't undergo surgery and passed away yesterday. It was no wonder Xiaoguai suddenly lost control of her emotions. She was afraid that she would be like Susan, suddenly losing her breath. Xiaodong bit her fist hard as tears rolled down her face. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and her shoulders trembled violently. She wanted to comfort Xiaoguai, but she couldn't calm her emotions. Mommy, don't cry. The baby in your stomach will cry too. Xiaoguai weakly reached out her small hand and carefully wiped away the tears beside her eyes. Bailey Han put his arm around Xiaodong's shoulders. His eyes were also shining with tears as he softly comforted the sad mother and daughter. Xiaodong's eyes were still red when they came out of Xiaoguai's ward. She sat on the sofa in the hall and calmed herself down before they walked into the doctor's office. The doctor said that Xiao Guai's condition was out of control and she needed to undergo surgery as soon as possible. It would be best if it could be done within a month. Xia Dong roughly calculated the time. She was now 7.5 months pregnant. With 3 more weeks it would be just right for a C-section. She looked into the doctor's eyes and begged, "Doctor, no matter what, please help my daughter hold on for 3 more weeks. After 3 weeks we can perform the surgery." Bailey Han said in a low voice, "Doctor, we're counting on you." The doctor nodded seriously and said, "Don't worry, I'll do my best." Bailey Han said, "I've already contacted my friends in the United States. They've introduced a special drug. This is a new drug that has just been developed in the United States. It's said to be very effective. I want you to give it to my daughter." He took out a photo from the United States and handed it to the doctor. After the doctor looked at the photo, he said, "I've also heard about it, but there's no such drug in Rome for the time being. Moreover, the hospital hasn't used this drug before. I don't know if it will cause side effects." Bailey Han said, "I've also considered this risk, so I specially invited a doctor in the United States who has used this drug before. He'll arrive in Rome in 3 days. If you take the drug under his guidance, it will be much safer. Come and see." Xianxia 866. Chapter 282. The doctor was silent for a moment and then said slowly, "Okay, I agree with your request." After leaving the hospital, Xia Dong received a call from the butler of the Castle of the Night. "Miss, Master invites you and Mr. Bailey to the castle for dinner tonight. Is it a special occasion tonight? Young Master Holly is bringing a friend home." Xia Dong's eyes flickered. Is it his girlfriend? Holly was a famous playboy. It could be said that although he had many girlfriends, he had never brought them back to the castle and introduced them to his family. It's said to be a female friend. The butler laughed heartily and was in a good mood. Xia Dong also laughed. "Then I must go and see what kind of woman Holly likes." The butler smiled and asked, "Miss, do you need a car to pick you up?" "No, we'll drive there ourselves." The Castle of the Night was rarely so lively. Night had just fallen, and the lights in the entire manor were lit up. The bright lights enveloped the ancient castle, just like the stars surrounding the moon. Against the backdrop of the night, it looked even more luxurious and charming. The Rolls-Royce stopped outside the main gate of the castle. A servant immediately stepped forward and bent down to open the car door. Bailey Han supported Xia Dong as they walked up the stairs step by step and into the magnificent main hall. As soon as they reached the door of the living room, Holly greeted them with a bright smile on his handsome face and his arms open. "My dear xiaxia, you're so charming tonight. Holly, you're very handsome tonight too. Where's your mysterious guest?" Because of their stomachs, they couldn't hug each other as usual. Instead they shook hands. Holly smiled and leaned to one side. Xia Dong found that there was a beauty standing behind him, an Asian beauty. This Asian woman was tall. Xia Dong was considered tall among women, but she was half a head taller than Xia Dong. Wearing high heels, she should be about 1.75 meters tall. She was wearing an ink jiangnan cheongsam. Although it was black and white, it made people's eyes light up. The perfectly tailored plain brocade cheongsam perfectly outlined her graceful curves. Her pair of watery eyes were slightly smiling, and her delicate facial features were elegant and charming. Her fair skin was so fair that it could be broken with a flick of a finger. Under the reflection of the luxurious crystal lights, she was so elegant that she looked like a woman who had walked out of an ink painting. Holly smiled and introduced, "Xiaxia, this is my friend Shui Rian. Rian, this is the one I mentioned to you before. She's my adopted sister, Xia Dong. The one beside her is her husband, Bailey Han." Shui Rian, as her name suggested, was as gentle and beautiful as smoke. She smiled gently, revealing 2 dimples on her lips. "Hello, Mr. Bailey, Mrs. Bailey." Bailey Han nodded coldly in response. Xia Dong smiled. "Hello, Miss Shui." Shui Rian was very elegant. Her every move showed that she came from a prestigious family. Her every frown and smile had the unique charm of an Asian woman. In the dining room, the marble floor, the gorgeous chandelier, the shiny silver cutlery, the exquisite food, and the mellow red wine made the banquet look perfect. At the table, Holly was humorous and witty, making Tomac laugh heartily. Shui Rian didn't talk much until Holly brought the topic to calligraphy and painting. Coincidentally, Tomac was especially fond of China's calligraphy and painting. He admired her attainments in this field. Tomac didn't hide his admiration. "Miss Shui, you're so young but you know so much. It's rare." Shui Rian smiled. "I've made a fool of myself. My father is an antique dealer, so I've been interested in this field since I was young. I was influenced by what I saw and heard, and gradually learned some superficial knowledge. Tomac was interested. "Can you tell me what you do for a living?" She smiled. "I'm an appraiser for an auction company. I'm responsible for appraising China's antiques and paintings." "Very good, very good." Tomac nodded his head and looked at Holly with a smile. He praised the latter for turning over a new leaf and making such a girlfriend. After the banquet ended, everyone sat in the living room and chatted. Xiaodong discovered that the relationship between Shui Rian and Holly wasn't ordinary. Although they didn't do anything intimate, their eyes, expressions, and some small movements were shockingly similar. Only people with a close relationship would have this kind of similarity. Tomac also noticed it and his mood became more and more cheerful. Before Holly and Shui Rian left, he specially asked the housekeeper to bring an antique vase and gave it to Shui Rian. Shui Rian politely declined and he smiled. "Rian, this vase has a good shape. You can take it and play with it." Shui Rian glanced at Holly. Seeing him nod his head, she accepted it and thanked him with a smile. Tomac saw this and liked her even more. She knew how to respect Holly's opinion. She was a very smart girl. Shui Rian politely bid farewell to everyone. Holly personally put the shawl on her shoulders. She held his arm and the two walked out of everyone's sight. Holly's car drove out of the castle. Tomac looked at Xiaodong and smiled gently. "Xia, what do you think of Shui Rian?" Xiaodong smiled. "Smart, beautiful, and knows when to advance and retreat. She also has Holly in her eyes. I think she's quite good." Tomac nodded. "I think so too." "On, what do you think?" Bailey Han looked indifferent. "She looks too perfect. It makes her seem unreal. I don't like it." Tomac's expression froze. He coughed and said, "Maybe she's perfect." Bailey Han smiled. "There's no perfect person in this world. More or less, everyone has some flaws. It's because of these flaws that they have flesh and blood." Tomac was touched by his words and fell into deep thought. Xiaodong smiled and said, "Maybe it's because I'm not perfect, so I admire those who look perfect. Let's not talk about other aspects. Miss Shui's personality is quite good. Holly should get along well with her." Tomac sighed. "I hope Holly is serious this time. He's not young anymore. It's time for him to start a family." "Godfather, don't worry. I think Holly has matured a lot." Xiaodong comforted him. "Yeah, that's why I'm so happy about him." After chatting for a while, Xiaodong and the others said goodbye. On the way back to the villa in the car, Xiaodong sighed. "Shui Rian is really beautiful and elegant. I'm quite supportive of her being with Holly." Bailey Han said in a serious tone, "She's not as beautiful as you and she doesn't have your elegance." Xiaodong's face darkened. "Hubby, don't go against your conscience and praise me. I'm telling the truth. She's like a doll. She lacks personality. You're the best." Although Xiaodong felt sweet from his praise, she was still curious. "Hubby, it seems like you don't like her." "What? Don't all men like beautiful women?" Bailey Han's eyes darkened. "There's something about her that's similar to Su Yunqian. It's hard for me to like her." Xiaodong didn't expect that Su Yunqian would say something like this. She was stunned for a moment before carefully comparing them. Su Yunqian was elegant and noble while Shui Rian was elegant and refined. Although they were two different people, they did have some similarities. For example, they both came from rich and powerful families. They both had good manners and elegant manners. However, it was still a bit far-fetched to reject Shui Rian just based on these. He said again, "Honey, who told you that all men like beautiful women?" She came back to her senses and raised her eyebrows. "What? Am I not a beautiful woman?" Bailey Han chuckled. "In my eyes, of course you're the most beautiful. However, it's not true that all men like beautiful women. If you really love someone, you only love her as a person and not her appearance. Even if she's no longer young and beautiful, my love for her won't change." He turned to look at her with a burning gaze. Her face was a little hot. She coughed. "Hubby, focus on driving." He sighed. "Honey, you really know how to ruin the atmosphere." She covered her mouth and snickered. She had to admit that his confession was very effective on her. Bailey Han didn't lie to Xiao Guai. He really arranged everything and brought Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao to Rome. After the Bailey family's private jet landed, the two brothers, wearing identical clothes, walked out of the plane and appeared in front of Bailey Han and Xiaodong. "Dad, Mom?" Xiao Bao ran over with his short legs while Xiao Yi walked over calmly and unhurriedly. Bailey Han bent down and picked them up, one on each side with a gentle smile on his face. Xiaodong also wanted to hug them, but with her big belly she couldn't do it. She could only pat their heads and smile. "Babies, are you tired?" "We're not tired," the two answered in unison. Xiao Bao stared curiously at Xiaodong's belly. Mom, the baby is already so big. Is it hard for you? Xiaodong smiled and ruffled his hair. It's not hard. The baby is very obedient and rarely torments me, just like the three of you. Xiao Yi said seriously, Mommy, we won't make you angry anymore. Xiao Bao nodded hurriedly. Yes. We've already deeply reflected on the matter with Godfather. This is what men should do. I'm very proud of you. Bailey Han put them down on the ground with a proud look on his face. The two brothers were embarrassed and giggled. Bailey Han chuckled. Let's go. We're going to the hospital to see Gigai. On the way to the hospital, the family of four laughed non-stop. The two little guys had stored a lot of things in their stomachs that they wanted to say to their parents. Now that they had the chance, they couldn't stop talking. Only when the car arrived at the hospital did they quiet down. Thinking about Xiao Guai's current condition, their hearts became heavy. At Xingu 799. Chapter 283. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao almost couldn't believe their eyes. Was the little girl on the hospital bed, tortured by her illness, really their adorable little sister? Their noses turned sour and tears welled up in their eyes. They clenched their fists at the same time and bit their lower lips tightly. However, no matter how hard they tried to suppress it, they couldn't suppress the urge to cry. Their tears fell pitter-patter. Xiao Guai lay weakly on the bed. Her eyes opened slightly, revealing a look of pleasant surprise. A smile slowly bloomed on her lips. Brother Yi. Her voice was a little hoarse. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao quickly ran to her side. Xiao Bao carefully stroked her pale little face and tearfully said, Gigai, it's us. We're here. Xiao Yi gently held her cold little hand. Tears glistened in her eyes as she softly said, Gigai, don't be afraid. We'll always be with you. Xiao Guai held Xiao Yi's hand tightly and smiled faintly. I'm so happy. Brother Yi, I'll get better, right? Xiao Bao nodded vigorously. Yeah, right. You'll definitely get better. Xiao Yi bit her lip. Gigai, we still have to go to kindergarten together, primary school together, middle school together, and university together, so you'll definitely get better. Xiaodong looked at the three children. They were all holding back their tears. They were clearly very sad, but they were still comforting each other. They were so sensible that it made her heart ache. Unknowingly, her tears had blurred her vision. Suddenly, she was pulled into a warm embrace. Bailey Han gently wiped her tears and comforted her softly. Wifey, it's okay. Gigai will definitely be fine. Don't be sad, she nodded with tears streaming down her face. Yes, she couldn't be sad or agitated. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for the baby and it would affect her condition. She had to be strong. Bailey Han comforted his wife and children. It took him a lot of effort to calm everyone down. After Xiao Guai fell asleep, the family of four came out of the ward and waited for the elevator. When the elevator door opened, Holly and Shui Rian walked out. Shui Rian was carrying a flower basket. Xiaodong was slightly taken aback. Xiao Bao shouted excitedly, Uncle Holly. Hey Xiao Bao, when did you come to Rome? Holly hugged Xiao Bao and happily rubbed his little face. Xiao Bao was tickled by the stubble on his chin and frowned. I just arrived today. Uncle Holly, are you here to visit Xiao Guai? Yes, I brought my friends to visit Xiao Guai. I was so excited that I forgot to introduce them. Holly placed Xiao Bao on the ground and smiled at Shui Rian. Rian, this is Xiaxia's youngest son, Xiao Bao. This is Xiaxia's eldest son, Xiao Yi. As he spoke, he patted Xiao Yi's head and smiled. Xiao Yi, you can also call me Uncle Holly. Xiao Yi nodded politely. Hello, Uncle Holly and Auntie. Good girl? Shui Rian had a faint smile on her face. Her gaze lingered on Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao for a few seconds before turning to Xiaodong and Bailey Han. Mr. Bailey, Mrs. Bailey, I heard from Holly that Xiao Guai is sick, so I wanted to come and see her. I hope I won't disturb you. Xiaodong smiled. Miss Shui, thank you for your concern. But Xiao Guai just fell asleep. Shui Rian said considerately, then let's take a look outside the ward. Don't go in and wake Xiao Guai. Holly, what do you think? Holly smiled gently. Okay. Xiaodong and her family of four accompanied them to the door of the ward. Shui Rian looked through the glass window and saw Xiao Guai's current appearance. Her expression was a little sad and her eyes reddened. Her beautiful eyes had tears in them. When she saw Xiaodong looking at her, she smiled embarrassedly. Sorry, I forgot myself. Holly thoughtfully held her slender waist and explained to Xiaodong, Rian's younger sister died of leukemia when she was very young. When she saw Xiao Guai, she couldn't help but think of her younger sister. Shui Rian forced a smile. My younger sister was only 6 years old when she fell sick. I was only 8 years old, but I always remember how she looked when she was seriously ill. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned this. I believe that Xiao Guai will definitely get better. Xia Dong smiled kindly. It's okay, don't worry about it. Thanks to your auspicious words, Xiao Guai will definitely be fine. Shui Rian smiled faintly. Yes, Xiao Guai is so cute. God will bless her. Holly and I have something to do, so we'll take our leave first. Okay, if you have time, you can come to our house to play. Shui Rian winked playfully. Okay, it's rare to meet Chinese people in Rome. I won't be polite. Everyone went downstairs together. Bailey Han and Holly's cars drove out of the hospital's parking lot one after the other. Bailey Han's villa was only 2 streets away from the hospital. Soon they parted ways with Holly. Holly glanced at the car that turned into another road and chuckled. Baby, why did you suddenly want to visit Xiao Guai? Shui Rian turned to look at him. 2 faint smiles bloomed on her beautiful face. Darling, I know you like Xiao Guai a lot. As your girlfriend, of course, I have to love her too. Holly smiled. You know how to please people. Shui Rian reached out to pinch his handsome face and said coquettishly, What's wrong? Don't you like her? Of course not, I like her a lot. He took the opportunity to hold her hand and kissed her fair and slender fingers. She smiled sweetly and her eyes revealed a different kind of flirtatious expression. I'll make you like her even more. Her hand landed on his thigh and gently rubbed it like a feather. His light blue eyes suddenly narrowed and his seductive thin lips curved into a mesmerizing arc. His voice was low and magnetic. Little vixen, don't ignite the fire. She chuckled softly. Her laughter was like a silver bell. He suddenly stepped on the brakes and the car stopped by the side of the road. Before she could react, he had already pulled her into his arms. His sexy thin lips kissed her lips fiercely, and their fiery breaths passed between each other. He sucked on her tongue and bit her lips. He hugged her waist with one hand and slid the other under her skirt. His nimble fingers wandered along her thigh to the inner side of her thigh. Her body was trembling from excitement and her slender fingers followed his movements and grasped his clothes tightly. Ah! His fingers teased her and she couldn't help but moan. She hugged his neck with both hands and nibbled on his earlobe gently. Her voice was so soft and seductive. Darling. Not here. Their car was parked by the roadside and had already attracted the attention of the traffic police. She glanced from the corner of her eye and saw a male traffic police walking over. Although the tinted windows prevented the people outside from seeing what was happening inside, she still didn't want to put on a show in front of everyone. Holly's fingers stiffened and there was a seductive smile on his sexy lips. Darling, do you know how beautiful you look right now? I want to let others see how beautiful you are right now. No, darling, I was wrong. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were misty. She seemed to be obsessed and in pain at the same time. He kissed her red and swollen lips and said in a low voice, Beg me? Her body trembled and she was almost defeated by his actions. Her voice was gentle and seductive. Darling, I beg you, good girl. He kissed her lips in satisfaction and slowly pulled his fingers out. At the same time, the traffic police knocked on the car window. Holly ignored them and took out a tissue. He wiped his fingers elegantly and wiped the liquid off his fingers bit by bit. Knock knock. The knocking on the window became louder. He slowly took off his suit jacket and put it on Shui Rian's shoulders. Shui Rian blushed and used the jacket to cover the mess on her body. Sir, please get out of the car. The traffic police knocked on the window again. Holly pressed the button and the window slowly lowered. He looked at the traffic police expressionlessly. What's the matter? After the traffic police saluted, he said, Sir, you can't park here. Please drive away quickly. Okay. Holly replied indifferently. The car sped on the road at the fastest speed and finally stopped in front of a luxurious villa. Holly pulled Shui Rian out of the passenger seat and strode toward the villa. He entered a string of passwords at the entrance and the door opened automatically. When they entered the villa, they saw that it was decorated in the style of a European palace. It was simple and elegant, exuding a strong sense of luxury. After entering, he pressed her against the wall and kissed her forcefully on the lips, conquering her. Flames burst out and burned the two of them. He tore the suit jacket off her shoulders and threw it on the ground. His right hand touched her back and pulled down the zipper. She also reached out to unbutton his shirt. Just as she unbuttoned one button, he suddenly grabbed the lapel with both hands and took off his shirt. The clean and tidy living room was in a mess in an instant. His shirt was thrown at the door, her skirt was thrown on the sofa, his pants were thrown at the corner of the stairs, and her underwear was thrown in the corridor leading to the bedroom. By the time he placed her on the large, palatial bed, they were already facing each other naked, with no cover at all. He didn't give her any chance to breathe and penetrated her fiercely. She grabbed his arm tightly and moved up and down with his movements. He rubbed, teased, and tortured her constantly, but he just didn't let her be satisfied. She stared at him with wet eyes and bit her red lips to express her dissatisfaction. His lips curled up into a sinister smile. "Baby, I thought you were still thinking about him." She whimpered, "Of course not. My body and mind are all yours now." He bit her neck and panted heavily. "Prove it to me. I love you." She hugged him tightly and whispered in his ear. Her slender legs wrapped around his lean back. He growled and his movements became more and more intense. Finally he led her to the peak. Lying in his arms, she closed her eyes and panted. Her heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out of her chest. Only she knew that at the moment when they were walking in the clouds, she had treated him as someone else's substitute. At Songshu 566. Chapter 284. 2 days later, the Dr. Bailey Han invited from the United States, Louis, rushed to Rome. He brought the special medicine with him, and Xiao Guai took the medicine under his guidance. The equipment recorded the changes in her condition 24 hours a day, and the doctors and nurses were on high alert. Louis had already arranged several emergency response plans in advance. Everyone was waiting anxiously. On the first day Xiao Guai took the medicine there were no special effects, but there were no side effects either. On the second day the symptoms of her bleeding gums subsided. On the third day her gums stopped bleeding, and the blood spots and petechiae on her body faded. The whole family was very happy, and Louis decided to continue her medicine. A week passed and she became more and more sleepy. She slept most of the day. After breakfast she would go to bed early, after lunch she would take a nap, and after dinner she would sleep until the next day. However, after sleeping for so long she still looked drowsy when she was awake. Sometimes she would play with her brothers and fall asleep in Bailey Han's arms. Bailey Han was worried that it was a side effect of the special medicine. After Louis carefully examined her, he said that other than drowsiness, there were no other side effects. After careful consideration, Bailey Han decided to let Xiao Guai continue to take the special medicine. 2 days later Xiao Guai's condition did not continue to worsen, but she was still very weak. Every day except for lying in the sterile ward, she could not go outside. Occasionally when she was in good spirits she would get out of bed, walk a few steps and play with her 2 brothers for a while. Xia Dong was ready for the surgery. After the examination Terence said, "Mrs. Bailey, based on your current condition, there is no need for a hysterectomy. You just need to remove the uterine fibroids when you have a C-section." Xia Dong said excitedly, "Really? That's great, Terence. Thank you very much." Bailey Han reached out and held Terence's hands tightly. "Thank you." At this moment, tears welled up in his eyes. Finally, they had overcome one obstacle, but there were still other obstacles that could be overcome. Coming out of the office, Bailey Han couldn't wait to hug Xia Dong and kiss her passionately. He didn't let go of her until her breathing became erratic. He pressed his chin against her neck and deeply breathed in her unique fragrance. His surging emotions couldn't calm down for a long time. The doctor set the time for the operation, which was 2 days later. During the video call with his family, Bailey Han relayed the news to them. They were all very nervous but no one showed it. Everyone comforted them and prayed for them. That night, Mika Kito called. "Xia, I heard from Holly that you and Xiao Guai are going to undergo surgery." Xia Dong grunted and pretended to be relaxed as she said, "2 days ago Xiao Guai was still talking about you. You have to come and see her when you're free." The sound of the airport announcement came from the phone. Mika Kito chuckled softly. "I'm at the airport now. Xiao Guai will be able to see me tomorrow morning." Xia Dong was stunned for a moment. She was touched. "Brother Shin, you didn't have to rush over now." His voice was gentle. "Xia, don't be afraid." She felt a lump in her throat. "I am not afraid." He suddenly stopped in his tracks. Suzaku was walking behind Mika Kito. When she saw him stop, she also stopped in her tracks. She heard his gentle voice. "Yes, Xia is a brave girl. Of course I'm not afraid." Suzaku was suddenly stunned. Many years ago she was still a little girl who was afraid of thunder. One day there was a thunderstorm and she hid in the closet. Everyone was looking for her like crazy. In the end, a little boy opened the closet and found her. She was afraid that he would laugh at her, so she preemptively said, "I'm playing hide and seek here. I'm not afraid." The little boy was surprised at first, but then he laughed and said, "I know you're a brave girl. You won't be afraid." "Suzaku," Mika Kito's deep and cold voice came from behind her. Suzaku snapped back to her senses and realized that Mikakito had already ended the call. He was standing 4 or 5 meters away from her and looking back at her. She hurriedly caught up with him and said, "Sorry?" His gaze was deep as he said calmly, "Is there something on your mind?" She was like a child who had been caught red-handed. She pursed her lips uncomfortably. "No." He looked at her with a clear gaze. "If you have any difficulties you can tell me." In his eyes she had always been calm and steady. He rarely saw her in a daze. But just now, with the crowd coming and going, she was like a puppet standing there in a daze. It made him feel very strange. She was slightly stunned and smiled. "No thank you." He grunted in a low voice. "Okay, let's go." Xiaodong hung up the phone and was a little lost. Bailey Han hugged her from behind and whispered, "Are you thinking about him?" She leaned back in his arms and said softly, "I just feel that Brother Shin is too good to me. He's so good that it makes me feel guilty." He stroked her hair. He did all this willingly. In his eyes, he will only be happy if you are happy. Although he was unhappy, he had to admit that he admired Mikakito. "Yeah, I know." Because she knew she felt even worse. She also wanted him to be happy. "Don't think about it anymore. If you think about him again, I'll be jealous." He cupped her face and pecked her lips. She licked her lips and smiled mischievously. "I can already taste it. It's sour." He raised his eyebrows. "Since you know, how are you going to comfort me?" She played dumb. "What should I comfort you about?" His long eyelashes fluttered and he looked extremely serious. "I'm jealous that you're thinking about another man. Shouldn't you comfort my hurt heart?" "Okay, I'll comfort you." Her eyes curved as she smiled. She pouted and kissed him loudly on the cheek. "Oh, that's not enough. Put it on the account first. I'll collect interest." He narrowed his good-looking eyes and his lips curved into a mischievous smile. When Mikakito and Suzaku arrived in Rome, it was already the next morning. They first went to the hotel they had booked to tidy up. Then Mikakito gave Suzaku a day off. He went to the hospital alone to visit Xiaodong and her mother. Parking the car in the underground parking lot, he quickly walked to the elevator. The elevator door opened and a beautiful Oriental woman came out. She was exquisite and slender with delicate facial features. When she saw him, her beautiful pupils suddenly shrank, and she revealed an elegant smile. "Hello, Mr. Beitang." Mikakito stared at her sharply. "Who are you?" The smile on her lips became more obvious. "My name is Shui Rian." "You're Shui Rian." Mikakito sized her up calmly. His eyes were deep, hiding an unreadable emotion. Shui Rian laughed softly. "That's me. Holly must have mentioned me to you. I also saw your photo from him." Mikakito said expressionlessly, "What's your motive for getting close to Holly?" Shui Rian looked surprised. "Mr. Beidang, what do you mean? Holly and I are lovers. I like him." Mikakito pursed his thin lips and did not comment. "Is that so?" "In my opinion, women get close to Holly either for his money or power." It was a well-known fact that Holly loved to play. In the past, except for physical relationships, all of his women approached him with ulterior motives. Mikakito naturally placed Shui Rian in that category. Shui Rian did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Mr. Beitang, it's good that you care about Holly. But you're wrong for making wild guesses. I'm sincere about Holly." Mikakito said indifferently, "This is between you and Holly. I won't ask too much. But if you hurt Holly or the people around him, I won't let you off." Previously, when Holly introduced Shui Rian to him over the phone, he could tell that Holly loved her very much. He did not want this man who was like his own brother to be hurt. Shui Rian's eyes flashed with complicated emotions. She smiled and said, "What you're worried about will never happen." "That's good." Mikakito walked past her, entered the elevator and pressed the button to close the door coldly. Before Mikakito came to the hospital, he had talked to Xiaodong on the phone. When he arrived, Bailey Han, Xiaodong and the children were all there. Everyone was happy to see him. Of course, Bailey Han was not included. Although he admired Mikakito, he felt a sense of crisis. On the surface, he and Mikakito got along well, but they were still competing secretly. Mikakito coaxed Xiaoguai to sleep. When everyone came out of the ward, Mikakito asked Xiaodong, "Was Shui Rian here just now?" Xiaodong guessed that Holly had mentioned Shui Rian to him. She was not surprised and said, "Yes, she was here before you came." Mikakito's eyes darkened. "Don't let her enter Xiaoguai's ward in the future." "Oh, what?" he said in a deep voice. "I don't trust her." Xiaobao interrupted, "I don't like her either." Xiaodong ignored Xiaobao and asked Mikakito curiously, "Brother Shin, why do you say that?" Do you have a grudge against her? Mikakito shook his head. No, it's just my intuition. Xiaodong raised her eyebrows and thought of the reason why Bailey Han didn't like Shui Ruyan. She couldn't help but look up at him. The corners of his lips curled up, and his expression clearly said, "See, I'm not the only one who doesn't like Shui Ruyan." Xiaodong's mouth twitched. Okay, I'll be more careful in the future. Okay, that's right. Mikakito patted Xiaodong's head naturally. Bailey Han's body immediately emitted a cold aura, and the temperature around him suddenly dropped below zero. His sharp eyes were like knives as he stared fiercely at Mikakito. Mikakito ignored him. Xiaodong's forehead was covered in cold sweat. She quickly laughed dryly and tilted her head to avoid Mikakito's hand. Little Treasure and Little Wingzy looked at each other and giggled. Their father looked really cute when he was jealous. He looked like a cat with its fur standing on end. His fur was standing on end, oh? After leaving the hospital, Mikakito called Suzaku. Suzaku, investigate a person. Her name is Shui Ruyan. Welfare Songshu 566. Chapter 285. It was a very important day. Terence was going to perform a C-section on Xiaodong. After removing the fetus, he would immediately perform a fibroid removal operation. At the same time, Xiaoguai's attending doctor would extract the newborn's umbilical cord blood and perform the operation on Xiaoguai in the operating theater on a different floor of the same hospital. Everything was ready in the operating theater. Xiaodong lay on the surgical trolley while Bailey Han and Mikakito stood on either side of the trolley. Bailey Han held her hand tightly and said gently, "Honey, don't be afraid. I'll be right here with you." His palms were wet and sweaty as he held her hand so tightly. In fact, he was even more nervous and afraid than she was. However, he hid all his negative emotions and tried his best to comfort and encourage her. Xiaodong held his hand tightly and smiled. "Honey, don't be nervous. The baby and I will be fine. Xiaoguai will be fine too." He nodded heavily. "Yes, you'll be fine." Xiaodong grinned and turned her head slowly to look at Mikakito. Mikakito stroked her sweat-soaked hair and said in a deep voice, "Xia, don't worry. We're all here." "Yes, Brother Shin. Thank you." She smiled at him gratefully. It was almost time. The nurse reminded them kindly, the patient should be pushed into the operating theater. "Please make way." Bailey Han and Mikakito reluctantly let go of Xiaodong. They stood rooted to the ground and watched as the nurse pushed Xiaodong into the operating theater. The door to the operating theater slammed shut and their hearts skipped a beat. The two of them sat upright on the sofa and waited. Their faces were expressionless, but their palms were sweating. In the delivery room next to the operating room, there was a pregnant woman who gave birth naturally. Before Xiaodong entered the operating room, she had already been screaming. It had been an hour since Xiaodong had entered the operating room, but she still hadn't stopped screaming. Hearing this, Bailey Han and Bailey Han broke out in cold sweat. The veins on Bailey Han's forehead bulged. Mikakito pressed her hands tightly on her legs. Both of them stared anxiously at the operating room. Wah wah. Half an hour later, in the empty corridor, there was suddenly the sound of a baby crying. The two of them suddenly jumped up and ran towards the operating room. Before they arrived, the door of the delivery room beside the operating room suddenly opened. Nurse miscarried a baby and walked out with a smile on her face. "Mr. Smith, congratulations. Your wife has given birth to a little princess." A blond man with blue eyes rushed over at the speed of a rocket. He murmured excitedly, God bless, my dear child." Bailey Han and Mikakito froze in their tracks. After the ecstasy, their hearts turned cold as if they had been doused with cold water. They looked at each other and quietly withdrew their gazes. They decided not to return to the sofa and stood at the door of the operating theater to wait. For the first time, Bailey Han deeply understood what it meant to live like a year and what it meant to suffer. He turned to look at Mikakito and asked in a hoarse voice, 5 years ago, when Xiaxia gave birth to Xiao Bao and the others, were you the one who was with her the whole time? Yes, Mikakito said softly. She gave birth naturally. She was in labor for more than 10 hours. The pain she suffered at the time was similar to when she was addicted to drugs. After she gave birth, she fainted from the pain. As she recalled the past, Mikakito's eyes were filled with deep sorrow. Bailey Han's heart also ached with every word he said. He clenched his fists tightly. He almost didn't dare to imagine how she looked when she was sweating profusely and losing control during labor. He was so upset and regretful that he wasn't by her side at that critical moment. Wah 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 wah. Finally, the baby's cries came from the operating theater. Bailey Han trembled all over. The nurse opened the door of the operating theater and carried the baby out. She smiled and said, "It's a little princess. Mr. Bailey, congratulations." Bailey Han did not look at the baby. He asked anxiously, "How is my wife?" The operation was very successful. The fibroid has been removed. Now we will send the baby to the nursery. The baby's umbilical cord blood will also be sent to the operating theater on the 12th floor. The 12th floor was the floor where Xiaoguai was. Next, Xiaoguai would undergo the umbilical cord blood transplant operation. Bailey Han was relieved. "Nurse miss, let me hold the baby." The nurse smiled and handed the baby to him. He took the baby with trembling hands. His movements were so stiff that he did not even know where to put his hands. The baby was so small. Her face was wrinkled, her skin was red, and her eyes were tightly shut. She looked very ugly. His heart was filled with this little guy. Bailey Han wanted to laugh, but he could not control the tears in his eyes. As a clean freak, he did not mind that the baby had just been taken out of the womb. He lowered his head and kissed the baby's little forehead. His voice was hoarse. "Baby, I'm daddy." Mika Keto also hugged the baby. Her mood was extremely complicated. The nurse took the baby to the nursery. Bailey Han watched her go reluctantly. The doctor was stitching up the wound in the operating theater. After more than half an hour, he let Bailey Han and the others in. He saw the bloody sheet in the nurse's hands and suddenly shivered. Xiaodong was still unconscious because of the anesthetic. Her face was as pale as paper. Bailey Han bent down and kissed her sweat-dampened forehead. He said hoarsely, "Honey, you've suffered." He suddenly turned his head and covered his face. His shoulders were trembling violently. Mika Keto looked at him and then looked deeply at Xiaodong. She left the operating theater silently. Tears flowed down through his fingers. Bailey Han tried his best to control his emotions. After a few seconds, his rapidly heaving chest calmed down. He wiped away his tears, turned around and held Xiaodong's hands tightly. After more than 10 minutes, the nurse pushed Xiaodong into the ward. Bailey Han refused the nurse's help. He got warm water and personally wiped her face. After covering her with the quilt, he kissed her forehead and asked the nurse to come in. He went to the 12th floor to visit Xiaoguai. Xiaoguai was lying on the surgical trolley, waiting for the operating theater to be ready. Mika Keto's eyes were smiling. She said something softly to her. Her clear eyes were filled with surprise. She asked softly, "What happened next?" "What happened next?" It turned out that Mika Keto was telling her a fairy tale. Bailey Han smiled and walked over to them quickly. "Daddy." Xiaoguai's eyes lit up when she saw him. "Uncle Shin said that Mommy gave birth to a little sister. Is that true?" Bailey Han smiled gently. "It's true. Gigai will be an older sister in the future." "That's great. I'm an older sister. I'll definitely treat my little sister well." Although Xiaoguai was weak, she was in good spirits. She grinned happily. Bailey Han patted her head and said gently, "Gigai, you'll be entering the operating theater soon. Don't be afraid. Daddy and Uncle Shin are here." Yes, I'm not afraid. Uncle Shin said that I'll just be sleeping inside. When I wake up, the illness will be gone." He held her soft little hand. "When you wake up, Daddy will take you to see your little sister." Yes, that's great." When the nurse pushed Xiaoguai into the operating theater, she smiled and waved at Bailey Han and Mika Keto. "Daddy, Uncle Shen, see you later." "See you later," the two men said in unison and smiled at the same time. The operation had been going on for 8 hours. During this time, Bailey Han went upstairs to visit Xiaodong 3 times. On the 3rd time, Xiaodong woke up and fed Xiaobao her first mouthful of breast milk. She missed Xiaoguai very much. Bailey Han comforted her for a long time and coaxed her to sleep. Then he went downstairs to wait for the operation to end. During this time, Holly came over and asked them to eat. He waited here, but Bailey Han and Mika Keto declined. They had no appetite. Holly frowned and ordered takeout. "If you two don't eat, how will you have the strength to wait for Xiaoguai to come out? Don't wait for her to come out and collapse again. Quick, eat something." Holly stuffed 2 lunchboxes into their hands and pointed to the hall not far away. "There are tables and chairs there. Go there and eat before coming back. I'll wait here." They forced themselves to eat something. After waiting for more than 2 hours, the door of the operating theater finally opened. "Doctor, how is my daughter?" Bailey Han greeted him nervously. Mika Keto and Holly followed closely behind. The doctor took off his mask and smiled. "Don't worry. The patient's operation was very successful." "Thank you." The 3 of them thanked him profusely. The problem that had troubled them for a long time could finally be resolved. The nurse pushed Xiaoguai out of the operating theater. Bailey Han and the others followed her into the ward. After confirming that Xiao Guai was fine, they called the nurse to take care of Xiao Guai. Then they got up and left. It was already past 1 o'clock in the morning. Mika Kito returned to the hotel, Holly returned to his villa, and Bailey Han went upstairs while calling his family in China to let them know that he was safe. Xia Dong was a light sleeper. Just as Bailey Han walked to her bed, she opened her eyes. Is the operation over? Bailey Han's brows relaxed and he smiled gently. It's over. The operation was very successful. Honey, you can rest now. Xia Dong raised her hand and caressed his face. Her heart ached as she said, Honey, it's been hard on you today. He had been anxiously waiting for 2 operations. He must be very tired now. He held her hand and rubbed his cheek against it. He whispered, This little bit of hard work is nothing compared to what you've suffered. Honey, now that the anesthetic has worn off, does the wound hurt? She shook her head. Actually, it doesn't hurt that much. It was such a long wound. How could it not hurt? She just didn't want him to worry. How could he not understand? His heart ached as he hugged her. He was very careful not to touch her wound. His voice was hoarse. Silly girl, if it hurts, tell me. Don't force yourself. I'm fine. I'm really fine. Xia Dong patted his back gently. It's still early. You should rest for a while. She patted the spot beside her and smiled gently. The bed is very wide. You can sleep with me. Okay. He kissed her forehead. Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 286. Honey, you're awake. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Xia Dong opened her eyes and saw Bailey Han's familiar face. His gaze was gentle, and his fingers were gently tidying her hair by her ears. She smiled. No, I'm much better now. He kissed her forehead. The doctor said that you can eat some semi-liquid food now. I asked Marlene to make crucian carp soup. It'll be sent over in 20 minutes. If you're hungry, bear with it for a while. I'm okay. She stared at his bloodshot eyes and caressed his clean-shaven chin. Her heart ached as she asked, You woke up very early? Why didn't you sleep a little longer? He chuckled softly. I can't sleep whenever I think about how we have a baby and how Xiao Guai's surgery was a success. Silly. She rubbed her face against his, feeling a little touched. He hugged her tightly and whispered, I've already gone downstairs to see Xiao Guai. She's sleeping very soundly. I've also gone to the nursery to see the baby, but there are too many Xiao Baos in there. It's too far away, so I couldn't find our daughter. Xia Dong smiled. We'll see her soon. The nurse will bring her over to breastfeed later. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao are also clamoring to see the baby. They'll be coming over with Marlene. I'm okay. Bailey Han got out of bed and straightened his shirt. Honey, the doctor said that you can get out of bed and move around for 6 hours after the surgery to prevent the intestines from sticking together. I'll help you get out of bed and walk around. If you feel uncomfortable, you can tell me. Xia Dong nodded. With his help, she moved her legs and stood on the ground little by little. It was a simple movement, but it inevitably affected her wound. She gritted her teeth and endured it without crying out in pain. Does it hurt a lot? Can you endure it? Bailey Han held her waist and observed her expression nervously. She forced a smile. It hurts a little, but I can endure it. Come on, slow down. Let's walk a few steps less. Don't force yourself. Although Bailey Han felt sorry for her suffering, he still steeled his heart and helped her to continue walking. Otherwise, she would suffer even more if her intestines were to stick together or form a blood clot. He put her arm on his shoulder and let her center of gravity lean on him. This way, when she walked, the weight she had to bear would be greatly reduced, and the pain from the wound would also be reduced by a lot. After walking for more than 10 steps, he stopped. Honey, let's stop here for now. Let's rest for a while. We'll continue in a few hours. Xia Dong looked at the sofa in front of her. Hubby, let's go to the sofa. There are at least 15 more steps. Can you hold on? She smiled at him. I can. Trust me, I won't force myself. Okay. He held her arm tightly. Tell me if you feel uncomfortable. Okay. By the time he helped her to the sofa, her forehead was already covered in sweat. He helped her to sit on the sofa and got some hot water from the bathroom. He knelt in front of her on one knee and helped her wipe her cheeks. Then he brought over a toothbrush and a toothbrush. The cup was filled with hot water and the toothbrush had already been squeezed with toothpaste. He placed the spittoon between her legs. Okay, you can brush your teeth now. His attentive care warmed her heart. After washing up, he bent down and carefully carried her back to the bed. After a while, Marlene brought over a bowl of crucian carp soup and 2 children. The children were very sensible. Knowing that their mommy had just finished surgery, they didn't make any noise at all and quietly lay by the bed. Bailey Han took the bowl of fish soup that Marlene had served and gently stirred it for a while. When the soup wasn't too hot, he scooped a spoonful and fed it to Xia Dong. After drinking the soup, Bailey Han wiped the corners of her mouth with a tissue. The nurse walked in with the baby in her arms. "Mrs. Bailey, the baby is awake. You can feed the baby now." "Okay, sorry to trouble you." Bailey Han got up and took the baby. Xiao Bao went forward and blinked curiously. "Wow, is this a little girl? Why is she so wrinkled? She's so ugly. She doesn't look like us at all." Xiao Yi also went forward and touched the baby's small cheeks. She said maturely, "Idiot, babies are all like this when they're born. They'll look better in a month." Xiao Bao snorted. "Are you showing off that you checked the information last night?" Xiao Yi's face was fierce. "So what if I am? Do you have a problem with that?" Hey, you two." Xia Dong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Why do you two always like to quarrel when you're together?" Bailey Han's attention was on his little daughter. He raised his eyebrows carelessly. "It's normal for boys to quarrel. Baby girl, you can't be like your brothers in the future." He gently swung his arms and coaxed his daughter. His movements looked very skillful and were completely different from the stiff posture he had last night. Xia Dong was very surprised. "Honey, you seem to be very good at carrying the baby." Bailey Han proudly raised his eyebrows. "Of course. Before you woke up this morning, I held the pillow and practiced for more than an hour." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao burst into laughter. Xia Dong couldn't help but laugh when she imagined Bailey Han holding the pillow and humming a lullaby. Bailey Han didn't realize that he was being mocked at all. He said calmly, "Mother, the baby is hungry. Hurry up and feed her." "Oh, okay. Honey, take Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao out first." Oh, she almost forgot that her daughter was still hungry. Bailey Han placed the baby in her arms, then patted Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao's heads. He held their little hands and walked out of the ward. The three of them sat on the sofa in the corridor. Xiao Bao's two short legs swung in front and back. Xiao Yi supported her head with one hand and had a serious expression on her face. It was as if she was thinking about some philosophy of life. Xiao Yi suddenly turned her head. She puffed up her cheeks and looked seriously at Bailey Han. "Daddy, has the little sister been named?" Xiao Bao leaned over and blinked her beautiful eyes. "You're called Bailey Yi, I'm called Bailey Bao. Gigai is called Bailey Guai and the little sister is called Bailey Bei, okay?" Xiao Yi bluntly rejected his suggestion. "Bei Bei? It doesn't sound nice. It's like a puppy's name." Xiao Bao said unhappily, Hey, what do you mean? Are you discriminating against my and Gigai's names?" The name, Bei Bei, is obviously based on my and Gigai's names. Xiao Yi raised her chin. "If it doesn't sound nice, then it doesn't sound nice. Why would I lie and say it sounds nice?" Bailey Han was a little speechless. He raised his hand and knocked on the two brats' foreheads. "Lower your voices. This is the hospital." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao crossed their arms at the same time. They glared at each other unhappily and turned their heads to ignore each other. Bailey Han shook his head in amusement. "Actually, your mommy and I have already thought of a name. Her nickname will be Hai, which means hope. We'll let Grandpa, Grandma, and Great-Grandma decide on her proper name." Hai. The two brats turned their heads at the same time. They puffed up their cheeks and repeated it a few times. It was quite smooth and sounded beautiful. Most importantly, it had a good meaning. The little sister carried the hope of Gigai's life and came to the human world under everyone's expectations. The name Hai was very suitable. Bailey Han smiled. Hai. From now on, your little sister will be called Hai. After drinking milk, little Hai fell asleep again. She was small and curled up in Xia Dong's arms. Her heart was unbelievably soft. The nurse was about to send little Hai back to the nursery. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao touched her little face reluctantly. Xiao Guai had also woken up. The two little guys ran downstairs to accompany her. Bailey Han was worried that Xia Dong would be bored, so he came back after staying in Xiao Guai's ward for a while. He lay down beside her and held her in his arms. He took out a thick book from the bedside table. Xia Dong glanced at the two words, "The Book of Songs," on the cover and couldn't stop laughing. "Hubby, you're so special. Other people hold Tagore or Shakespeare's poetry books for romance. You're so good. You took out the Book of Songs." Bailey Han stroked her long hair and raised his eyebrows with a smile. "Honey, don't be so foreign. The precious cultural heritage left by our ancestors is much more meaningful than those foreign poems." Xia Dong blinked and teased, Yes. Teacher Bailey is right. This student will remember it. Bailey Han found it funny and stroked her hair hard. His voice was very pleasant to the ears. It was sexy and mellow just like red wine. The more one tasted it, the more delicious it was. It left a lasting aftertaste. The reeds are green and the white dew is frost. The so-called lover is on the other side of the water. She lay on his chest and narrowed her eyes. Listening to him read the poems in a low voice, she actually had the illusion that they had traveled through 1,000 years. They had walked through the long river of history hand in hand, walked through the ancient bluestone road, and walked through countless spring, summer, autumn, and winter. It was a wonderful feeling. She couldn't help but hug him tighter, and there was a sweet and demure smile on her lips. Bailey Han gently stroked her long hair as he read aloud in a low voice. From time to time he would lower his head to look at her. When he saw that she had closed her eyes and was sleeping peacefully with a smile on her face, he lowered his voice and read another 2 poems. Only when he heard her steady breathing did he gently close the book and put it aside. He pulled the blanket over her and looked at her sleeping face. He gently stroked her hair, and his heart was calm and satisfied. This was his wife who had given birth to his children. This was his wife who would accompany him for the rest of his life. Life was like this, so what was there to be dissatisfied with? Xia Dong slept for about an hour. When she woke up, she found herself still in Bailey Han's embrace. Looking up, she saw that he had already fallen into a deep sleep. Looking at the faint green under his eyes, she felt pity for him. He had worked hard the whole day yesterday and only slept for 4 to 5 hours last night. How could he not be tired? She knew that he was a light sleeper, so even if she woke up, she didn't move. She was afraid of waking him up. She quietly lay on her stomach and stared at his handsome face. The more she looked, the more she felt that he was really good-looking. Oh God, she was really infatuated. Knock knock. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Xia Dong frowned and looked up again. Bailey Han had indeed been woken up. He smiled, stroked her head and said loudly, "Come in." Han xiaxia. The person who opened the door and walked in was actually Bai Jinxiu. She was even dragging a suitcase in her hand. Attention Xinwu 799. Chapter 287. Xia Dong was surprised. Mom, why are you here? Mom, why didn't you tell me you were coming? Bailey Han carefully carried Xia Dong to the side, stood up from the bed and straightened his shirt. Bai Jinxiu was all smiles. Didn't I want to give you a surprise? Bailey Han teased, there's no surprise but there's a shock. Bai Jinxiu reached out and pinched Bailey Han's face. She smiled and said, Xia, is this still my son? He actually knows how to joke. Mom, Bailey Han sounded helpless. Xia Dong covered her mouth and laughed. Mom, don't tease Ahan anymore. Ahan is thin-skinned. Look, his face is red. Bailey Han sounded even more helpless. How am I blushing? Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Bai Jinxiu patted him on the shoulder and motioned for him to lower his head. Let Mom see your wound. It's all healed. There's nothing to see. Even so, he still lowered his head. His new hair had grown very well and had already covered the wound. Bai Jinxiu carefully fiddled with his hair with her fingers. A very long scar was hidden under the roots of his hair. She gently stroked the scar and her heart ached. Mom, it doesn't hurt anymore. Don't look. Bailey Han felt her fingers trembling, so he took her hand down and straightened his body. Bai Jinxiu wiped the corners of her eyes and smiled. Xia, how are you feeling now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Xia Dong smiled and said, Mom, I'm fine. It's just that the wound still hurts a little, but it'll get better soon. Bai Jinxiu sat beside her and patted the back of her hand. She sighed and said, That's good. We heard last night that you gave birth to a daughter, and Xiao Guai's surgery was very successful. The whole family was overjoyed. Especially your grandmother. She wanted to come to Rome with me. Your father and Xiao Jing also wanted to come, but they were too busy with the company. So they sent me as their representative to take good care of you. Xia Dong was very touched. Mom, thank you. I've made you worry. After Su Yunxian's true colors were exposed, Bai Jinxiu's feelings for Xia Dong were resolved. She held Xia Dong's hand and smiled sincerely. Silly girl, what are you talking about? You're the hero of our family now. Whatever you want to eat or need, just tell me. I'm here to take care of you. It felt good to have a harmonious family. Bailey Han smiled. Mom, you must be tired after coming all the way here. Take a rest first. I'll take care of Xia. Bai Jinxiu glared at him. You're a man. Do you know how to take care of people? For the first time, Bailey Han showed an aggrieved expression. Mom, ask Xia if I'm taking good care of her. Xia Dong snickered. Mom, Han is very good at taking care of people. He's taking good care of me. Bai Jinxiu looked at Bailey Han in surprise. She realized that her son's personality had changed a lot since he came to Rome. He was no longer the cold-faced person he used to be. She naturally attributed his change to Xiaodong, and she liked Xiaodong even more. Bai Jinxiu's smile deepened. She sighed and said, "Mom is relieved to see that you two are so close. Husband and wife should be like this. Care for each other, understand each other, and support each other." At the end, her eyes were a little red. Bailey Han's thin lips were tightly pursed. After a long silence, he asked slowly, "Mom, are you and Dad okay?" Bai Jinxiu wiped the corners of her eyes and forced a smile. "He's changed a lot since he came back from Rome. He rarely goes to that woman's place and treats me well. But after all, it's been so many years. It's impossible for him not to contact me at all." Xiaodong did not know how to comfort her. After all, it was not appropriate for her to intervene in the problems between her father-in-law and mother-in-law. She quietly poked Bailey Han's arm. He pursed his lips, took a tissue and handed it to Bai Jinxiu. He said in a deep voice, "Mom, one day Dad will understand what's most important to him. Give him some time." Bai Jinxiu took the tissue and wiped the corners of her eyes. She murmured, "Anyway, it's been so many years. I don't care anymore." She realized that it was not good to talk about this in front of her daughter-in-law and son. She coughed and smiled. "Which ward is Xiaoguai in? I'll go and see her." "Mom, I'll go with you." Bailey Han stroked Xiaodong's hair. "Honey, take a rest." "And okay. Mom, don't book a hotel. Just stay at our house. Han, send Mom's luggage home later." He smiled. "Don't worry. I'll arrange it." Bai Jinxiu's suitcase was temporarily placed in Xiaodong's ward. Bailey Han accompanied her downstairs to see Xiaoguai. The three children were very happy to see Bai Jinxiu. Bai Jinxiu hugged them one by one and kissed Xiaoguai's little face. She took out the gift Bailey Jing gave her from her handbag. It was a very cute Barbie doll, but Xiaoguai couldn't play with it directly. It needed to be sterilized before she could give it to her. Because after the surgery, her body was very weak and her immunity was relatively poor. She had to strictly control her contact with the outside world. Xiaodong's body recovered very quickly under the careful care of Bai Jinxiu and Bailey Han. 2 days later, her wound rarely hurt and she could walk on the ground freely. Under Xiaoguai's strong request, she and Bailey Han even carried Hai to her ward. The family was finally reunited, although it was in the ward. Bailey Han deliberately took a picture of this scene with his camera as a souvenir. Many things could happen in a week. For example, Xiaodong's wound had healed and she could be discharged from the hospital. For example, Shui Rian had gained Tomac's trust and often visited the castle with Holly. They even visited Xiaoguai in the hospital several times. Every time Shui Rian entered Xiaoguai's ward, Xiaodong would follow Mika Kito's instructions and pay attention to her movements. However, she didn't find anything unusual, so she gradually let down her guard. Another example was Xiaoguai's recovery after the surgery. The doctor said that she could be discharged after 2 more months of observation and would come to the hospital regularly for checkups. When Xiaodong was discharged from the hospital, Mika Kito happened to have something to deal with and couldn't come to visit her. Bailey Han took her back to the villa. The thing she wanted to do the most was to wash herself properly. During her stay in the hospital, she was worried that her wound would get infected, so she could only wipe her body with a towel. She felt dirty all over and was extremely uncomfortable. Bai Jinxiu specially boiled a pot of ginger water, saying that it was better for pregnant women to wash their hair with it. Bailey Han washed her hair with the ginger water. His fingers skillfully rubbed her hair and even used his exclusive massage technique to massage her scalp. She was so comfortable that she almost fell asleep. When she was bathing, she wanted to do it herself, but Bailey Han insisted on helping her. He said that he was worried that her wound would be affected. When he said this, Bai Jinxiu was beside him. Xiaodong blushed and coughed uncomfortably. Bai Jinxiu acted as if she didn't hear anything. She smiled and said, "I should go to the hospital to accompany Xiaoguai. Xiaxia, after your bath, rest for a while. Remember to drink the chicken soup I simmered in the kitchen." Xiaodong hurriedly said, "Okay, Mom. Be careful on the road." Bai Jinxiu carried the food box out of the door. Inside was the chicken soup for Xiaoguai. After she walked out of the living room door, her lips curled into a smile. "Okay, honey, let's go in and take a bath." Bailey Han suddenly bent down and picked her up. She hurriedly hugged his neck. "I can walk by myself. Gigai, be good. Don't move." He coaxed her as if he was coaxing a child. In the bathroom, facing his deep gaze, her cheeks flushed red. She was too embarrassed to take off her clothes in front of him. He smirked, his fingers skillfully landing on her back as he whispered, "Wifey, close your eyes." She muttered softly, "I should be the one saying that." He smiled deeply. "I'm not the one who's shy right now. Okay?" She closed her eyes, resigned to her fate. Although she couldn't see, her senses were especially sensitive. She could clearly feel his fingers gently pulling down her zipper and peeling off the long dress from her body. The bathroom was already filled with steam, so she didn't feel cold at all. However, when her skin was completely exposed, she couldn't help but shiver and instinctively covered her abdomen. "Honey, don't cover it. Let me take a look." His broad palm wrapped around her fingers. Her eyelashes fluttered and she said nervously, "No, it's too ugly." "It's not ugly. It's not ugly at all." Bailey Han squatted down in front of her and slowly moved her fingers away. A scar suddenly entered his line of sight. The scar was light pink, which was the appearance of a healing wound. He stared at the scar and felt a little jealous. Suddenly he pressed his lips against it. Her body stiffened and she opened her eyes abruptly. "No, hubby, it's too dirty." He acted as if he didn't hear her and used the tip of his tongue to gently lick the scar. Tears welled up in her eyes and her vision blurred. She didn't know when, but he had already stood up and gently wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He chuckled and said, "Silly girl, why are you crying?" Before he could finish speaking, she suddenly hooked her arms around his neck and kissed him hard on the lips. Her nimble tongue slid into his mouth and the two of them kissed tightly together. She felt something pushing against her waist. He suddenly let go of her and panted heavily. His eyes were passionate and a little scary. The dense desire almost drowned her. She reached out and wanted to hold him. "Hubby, let me help you." Her fingers had already touched the hot spot. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and said in a low and hoarse voice, "It's okay. It'll be fine after a while." He took a deep breath and tried hard to suppress the throbbing in his body. In front of her, he rinsed with cold water and adjusted the temperature of the water to the appropriate temperature. "Honey, it's done. I'll help you bathe." She shyly replied with an and sat down with her back facing him. Bailey Han's eyes had already regained their clarity. At this moment, there were no impurities in his eyes. As if he was treating a treasure, he carefully wiped and washed her body. "Come and see." Songshu 566.